Very good. Okay, hello, welcome everybody to this morning's cabinet. Can Christine maybe go through the setting and any apologies?
Yep, thanks, Chair, and morning members. Councillor Douglas Reid.
Yeah.
Councillor Jim McMahon.
Yeah, thanks.
Councillor John McFadden. No. Councillor Elaine Cowan. Here. Councillor Maureen Mackay.
Present.
Councillor Ian Linton.
Here.
Councillor Graham Barton.
Present.
Councillor Barry Douglas.
Here.
Councillor Neil Ingram.
Here.
Councillor Claire Maitland.
Here.
I have an apology from Councillor Drew Filson. Dr David Lewis.
Here.
Claire McKellar. Thanks, Claire. I can see you on screen. I have an apology from Babs Mowat. Norman Watt.
Here.
Jackie Livingston. And can I just check, Councillor McFadden, you're on the call now?
Yes, I'm here. I managed to get on.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Christine. Okay, on to the first bit, and that's declarations of interest. I don't think there's anything obvious, or if anyone else has got something they want to declare. Okay, we'll go straight in there to item 2E, which is the school term dates, and Kenneth McNamara. Linda. Okay, Linda.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Good morning, members and colleagues. I'm presenting paper 2E on the school term dates for 24-25. As colleagues will be aware, this is an annual paper to advise of the consultation exercise on school holidays for session 24-25, which has been fully carried out, and to seek approval to implement the option emerging as preference. Recommendations can be found in paragraph 4, which is to take forward option 1 for school dates and school closure dates, and to recognise in recommendation 4 the fluidity of the placement of the Ayr Gold Cup as in previous papers. The background to the paper is covered in paragraphs 5 through 10. This details the consultation exercise based on previous models. It acknowledges the placement of the spring break in the first 2 weeks, and that being placed on the 25th of May 2004 in agreement. The consistency in holidays is noted where possible across authorities in the west of Scotland, as are the teachers' annual leave entitlement and the closure days aspects fully covered in this background section. So the final proposal put in front of you today, Cabinet, for your consideration can be found in paragraph 11, which is the exception or the acceptance of option 1, which can be found in appendix 1, alongside the closure days appendix, which can be found in appendix 1A. Risks and other mitigations are put in place in terms of paragraphs 12 through 14, and none have been identified, given that this is a standardised paper in accordance with the rules set out by Scottish Government in terms of pupil and staff attendance in school. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Linda. Colleagues, any points on that? It's quite straightforward. Can we agree with recommendations? Okay. Next item 3E, and I've got the Andrew Kennedy for the food and catering support through the cost of living. It's Mark that's doing it, so.
Yeah.
Mark.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members, colleagues. This is 3E in the agenda. The purpose of the report. The purpose of the report is to provide an overview of all areas within the catering services that are supporting our communities through the cost of living challenges, and sets out the implementation of half-price school meals for primary 6 through the S6 within East Ayrshire from August 2023 through to June 2024. The recommendations are in paragraph 2, and from paragraph 3 through to 5 is the background. So highlighting the significant challenges that catering services are facing in terms of inflation and through the cost of living, and implementation of universal free school meals going forward. In paragraph 6, the cost of living and inflation, I would just like to highlight some of the significant challenges that we're facing, like any other hospitality or business, in terms of the biggest commodities in item 7 or paragraph 7. the milk, cheese, eggs, oils and fats, all the highlighted high inflation rates that we're challenged is items that we use plenty of within our school meals services. Going through in the school meals in paragraph 9, school uptake shows significant increase over the past year and during the scale of recovery. Our uptake is increasing, and it shows in paragraph 10s and 11s those levels of uptake. I would like to highlight on paragraph 12 where we are seeing up until March a time of brightness. Our numbers in school meals in primary and secondary are now at a close level of where we were in 2019-20, coming into those levels. This doesn't include the additional 2,000 meals we provide to early years, which takes us up to roughly 10,000 meals a day within our school estate and education estate. Promotion of school meals continues in paragraph 14, and through the free school meal expansion and nutritional standards in paragraph 15 through to 19 gives the details of what we're doing around that and what legislation we are sticking to within that. Menu development continues in paragraph 20 and 21, and we highlight some of the areas in 21 that we aim to provide within our school meals, and that's clear in there. I would like to highlight in paragraph 22 the summer food grant, which continues to be supported through Scottish Government, and again that payment will go out this summer and this week to parents' accounts direct into them, which gives an annual cost in line 24 of £162.50 during the holiday period per child within East Ayrshire. School meal debt 2020, line 25, following recommendations from the review of school meal payments report presented in Cabinet 22. We reviewed Circular 88 Alpha with our education colleagues and financial inclusion, and it details in there the steps taken to support that welfare of school meals, and also highlight some of the areas that we changed. We triggered the increase of the £40 meal allowance. That was based on an average of people paying back arrears on a monthly basis. That's why that was increased to the £40. And then the financial inclusion team in line 26, the financial inclusion team is now fully in place and will be working. We've identified 189 families which we're working through to support any additional requirements through any debt that they've incurred. Community larders in 27, we continue to support community larders. We now have 17 in place, and we are likely to receive the delivery of the community van, which will pick up areas of places where we can't put a community larder just in place at the moment. And onto half-price school meals on 32 through to 41. These are the details of what we class as a value of our school meal service and the implications of what this will be coming into play in August 2023. From line 41, primary school arrangements, there'll be no change. All that will change is the half-price school meals will be at £1.08, but there'll be no change to the primary school menu. And the high school menu will have a range of meal deal offers, which will cover any eventuality at £1.08, which will include a drink or a piece of fruit or a yogurt or biscuit within that meal deal. We do have general implications, number of in line 42, a number of additional operational implications have been identified, and the allocation of agreed at council will provide support and anticipate a loss of income based on the half price option. This option is targeted in current potential paying customers. In line 44, the forecasted costs at current uptake would be around about 516,000. So with the allocated funding, that would give us an overspend, potential overspend of about 16,000. And based on current uptake of PED pupils, based on an extra 10% of PED pupils, we would be looking in the region of about 667,000, which would be a non-funded cost of 167,000 in additional. So it's just for noting that. Moving forward to line 48, financial implications and legal implications. The potential risks in line 52, I would like to highlight at the end of the school year, 2023-24, uptake figures could fall again to current levels as school meal prices are returned to normal pricing, and free school meal allowance is appropriate to cover future potential food costs. Universal free school meals for 6s and 7s in primary school have still to be implemented by Scottish Government, and we have no confirmed dates of that just yet, so that could again have a potential risk, and the rise in school meal debt could continue. We have looked and considered the policy implications, and we realise that food remains a vital strategic area within the Council. And I would like to highlight in line 55 the Good Food Nation Act 2022, which is now in place. We will be getting details of the guidance of what we need to produce a food strategy and food plan within East Ayrshire. Each local authority will have to do that, but it clearly identifies areas that we need to look at and which we deal with just now, including health and wellbeing, child poverty and education. But in line 56, over the next 9 months, we will produce an East Ayrshire food and drink strategy to shape the ambition of the food and drink across East Ayrshire and support the preparation of the strategy requirements that are necessary as a result of the Good Food Nation Act 2022. We've looked at considered all net zero implications, and also quality impact assessment will be produced. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mark. Some good work here, but some absolutely stark, points that are made throughout the report. I think the inflation by product group. We worry about the energy crisis. And this, I take it this is the cost before the product's heated up. So that would add to the inflation. How much it is to make basic meals are going up considerably. And, as well as our pupils and our school communities. Our families must be facing this as well. It's quite stark. But loads of innovation here in how we challenge that and how we try and eradicate some of the kind of poverty issues here, including the half price school meals initiative that was previously put forward, and I think that's good to see that in here today. Members, any comments or questions? Claire, morning.
I think it's an excellent paper, but as you said, very, very stark. There was one thing I wanted to ask Mark, and it was one of the foods was up. I think it was fresh fruit was up 10%, and I wondered if Mark found the same problems that we do in the supermarket. That quality is a great problem as well, and as well as scarcity. So I just wondered how that reflected in Mark's job in catering. Thank you.
The quality side of things, when we have any deliveries, or one of our checks and one of our statutory checks is about quality assurance and obviously quantity, which our catering managers look at. We do have some issues, but what we do is we report them back through the supplier, and we either get a credit note or reissued for those items, as you would in any food complaint whatsoever. But we do have some issues with some of the quality of some of the items, but we report that straight back. But our suppliers that we work with, the local suppliers, are normally quite good at providing good quality ingredients for our school meals.
The other part was scarcity. You finding there's a scarcity? Thank you.
We haven't came across any scarcity at the moment within the school meal service. What we have is we speak to our suppliers. They've got very good buying power. And they always buy in advance, like the fruit and veg is always purchased in advance, and we are communicated if there's going to be any issues. Where we do see some issues is the likes of breaks and the dry goods. There may be some changes or some substitutions that come through which we're aware of or told of, and we may have to change the menu accordingly. But at the moment, we haven't had to change the menu as such.
That's maybe reflecting the usages. Get back towards its pre-COVID levels. That's quite reassuring as well. Maureen.
Thanks very much. Mark, thank you very much, and thank you for this paper, and thank you for the comprehensive nature of the paper. I couldn't agree more. I mean, if we're at the stage that we have the third highest level in Scotland of child poverty, in Scotland, then anything that we actually are able to do here is something that's to be welcomed. So I very much welcome the work that you and your team are continuing to do. I have a series of questions just to ask, because I do think that the paper is comprehensive and that it raises various points, Mark, which I think actually are just worth sort of going through. So one of the things that I'm aware of at the moment, I think I'm right in saying that COSLA are considering papers at the moment on free school meals. Any ideas at all? What is being discussed within that at all?
Yeah, current notes, and I am providing a brief for the leaders to go to COSLA this week. They are putting a notion through that they want to delay the further implementation of P6s and 7s, but also look at the potential for those young people on, I think it's child payment, which equates to around about 875 within our local authority, being brought forward as part of that universal free school meal allowance. We haven't got the details of that yet and when, but that would be additional funding that I would expect that would come from Scottish Government to provide those 875 young people entitled to the Scottish child payment, which aren't on normal free school meals, to be included in those universal free school meals going forward. But there is a delay, and we don't have any dates on what that may be for 6s and 7s going forward.
The measure from that then has to be that in relation to leaders, it's about sort of how we actually manage to advance that to the advantage of people living within East Ayrshire, and ensure that what we get is we are able to apply pressure at a national level to ensure that what we actually do is move things forward best for the people here in East Ayrshire, and also support the team who are doing the work that we have. I think that's what we have to take out of that one. On that basis, and in relation to the summer food grant, Mark, I suppose one of the things that was a concern in reading it was an unfunded allocation. So I suppose that goes back to asking the question where it says that that was an income-based school meals at a historic point in time, and that's really to ask when that point in time was, and I suppose to get that sense of what the gap is, and then to ask the next question, which is really, so how do we actually lobby to ensure that what we've got is something that's up to date and accurate, and really reflecting what our population need is, to make sure that what we are actually getting is what matches against need, and therefore what we're actually providing. So if we could start with those, that would be a help.
Yeah, if my understanding on the holiday school meal payment, that's based on the census that's taken, and basically works in a year in arrears of those numbers that are entitled to universal to free school meals. So the funding working in arrears, what has happened is we have had a fairly good increase in those entitled to free school meals. So when we do the calculations based on that, it's going to be higher than what the census has told us in the previous year. So it will work in arrears. But again, that was picked up, that overspend, I suppose, on that allocation was picked up last year by balances, I believe. If you can correct me if that was right, but it was picked up by balances, and we will see probably an overspend this year again on a similar scale of about £70,000.
I guess then that's something that's just going to sort itself out in time, because that's money then that's definitely going to come back into us. It's about cash flow or budget flow within the system.
Yeah, it'll be how Scottish Government allocate that fund for the the payment over the holiday periods.
Okay, so we are going to get the money, but we might not get the money in year, Mark. Is that accurate?
That's my understanding of it.
Okay, okay. So that's I think an important thing for us to note, that it's not that it's money that we're putting out that we're not going to get back. It's just that there's going to be a delay in that money coming back.
I mean, I think there needs to be a conversation, with COSLA and the government on that particular issue. I know I think I've not read the paper in any detail, but I know it's on the agenda for the meeting on Friday.
It's just that assurance to councillors that our first priority will to be make sure that the payment actually goes out to all the families and young people in East Ayrshire. Anything we need to do in terms of the financing and accountancy at the back end of that, as you'll expect, we'll pick that up. But the assurance is that we'll make sure that we get the money out to the young people and families in East Ayrshire.
Thanks, Ed.
Really what the priority and what the focus is. So that's really important. Again, Mark, just working my way through the paper in terms of the school meal debt that we've got. Bottom bullet point at 25. So how much? And then the same question is at 26 is really then, so what's the value of this? And again, if you don't have accurate figures now, that's absolutely fine. Happy to take that out with this. That would be helpful. Thank you.
I do have figures of the total school meal debt. The total school meal debt sitting at present is £47,476, which is a term increase of about £22,000. The biggest increase is in primary 6, that have moved up from primary 5. And sorry, Maureen, what was your second bit to that?
To ask, it was at the bottom bullet point was just when you're talking about that being managed and being written off. So how much had actually been written off?
Yeah. Sorry, in the old debtor system before we after the last meeting in October, before we delayed the debtors request, the funding, or not the funding, sorry, I've lost my track there. There has been around about 22,000 in debtors that has been already written off before that.
May I just continue, Peter? Thank you. So in terms of the half-price school meals, thank you. I think it's really helpful how you have actually set that out in terms of what the cost and what the value of that actually is. I think that's something that's really important, that we continue to promote that. And I think we have got over the page in terms of at 39 and 40 what the comparisons actually are in terms of representing really just what the value for money that the school meals are, even out with the deal. And I think that's something that we should continue across the year as you're planning to highlight, to make sure that people actually understand that even at full cost, what an excellent value for money option it actually is. I certainly, valued actually getting the secondary school menu and looking at that. There was certainly food there that I would be very happy to get at full cost, and at a cost of £1.08, I would be absolutely delighted to be able to get that. And I think that's something that, we certainly should note and encourage going forward. So overall, I think that what we have got here is something that's really positive. I wish that we didn't need to take the means and the approach that we are having to take, but I think it very much reflects that we are on the front foot trying to support our communities as best we can, particularly our children. Thank you very much. I would ask just for a slight change in terms of the recommendations, and that is at point 5. It says that you're planning to come back and give that details of uptake, and I wonder if that's something that would be best. I'm really not sure about it, whether it would be best done on a quarterly basis to come back to us, or if the reporting timescale is better to have it on a term time basis, and I'm happy to take suggestions for that.
Thanks, Maureen. What would be most suitable for you, Mark? What would...
Yeah, but normally we can do our uptake figures based on a monthly figure for those details. What is a little bit more difficult is any financial details, because we have to go into individual accounts. But the uptake we can do on a monthly basis, and we normally look at that on a monthly basis anyway.
So I mean, it wouldn't be an issue for you to give us a quarterly report to members.
Yeah, quarterly report would be okay.
That'd be fine. Okay. No, I mean, it's the figure there. You know, the £6 to £3.50. You know, the high street prices is quite quite interesting. I'm sure many of the kind of families will be really interested in that figure. You know, that just brings it home. And for what it's worth, my children are enjoying their school meals just now. Particularly pizza at Grange Academy here is very good. Eddie.
Thanks, Chair. And just for clarity, if members are content, you know, Mark would do that as a members briefing that goes to all members rather than bring a full school meals report to Cabinet every quarter. We'll still bring, obviously, regular reports, but actually if it's a quarterly paper, we'll do it as a members briefing. That'll be a statistical management report that you can get, because actually we can do a bit more detail sometimes around that, you know, for that, if that's okay with members.
That's fine. Sorry, Barry, didn't see your hand up there. But Barry.
Oh, thanks, Dougie, and Mark, thank you for the paper. I think it's really useful. Definitely to echo comments other members have made. I think £1.08 for a school meal will hopefully go some way to help family budgets, and certainly something that I'm very supportive of, as we discussed at the budget, and I'm glad to see the stats around this today. My question was more following on from Maureen's question, actually, relative to the school meal debt, and thanks for the figure, Mark, and great that you had that to hand. But just so I'm clear, you've said that has increased by £22,000 in a term, and if that's the case, that's a 47% increase as far as I can tell from the figures. Any particular reasons behind that? I know you're saying primary 6. I get it's parents who have not been used to paying for the school meal, and what do we do to maybe get that information out there that actually P6, P7 we do require to pay, because as yet the Scottish Government haven't delivered on that promise to deliver school meals free for all at primary school age. And I just wonder if there is anything we can do around that, just so people realise that they are having to pay. And I think maybe doing that as part of the half price school meal programme, because I think making sure we get the message out there is really important. Thanks.
Yeah, we still continue to send reminders out of balances, that still goes out. We just seen a significant increase in primary 6s just now. It's probably the highest increase, and then an increase in high school prices, where we as a council have said we will not let anybody go without a meal. I think that's probably one of the reasons why it is. But also some of our free school meal children are actually using their allowances out with to purchase other goods, and I think that's something that we need to look at further. But promotions will go out over the summer period. Promotions will go out round about the half price school meal implementation, and we'll continue to work through that through our education colleagues in the standard circular, which has been strengthened, and through our colleagues in the financial inclusion team. So we'll probably get more message out there now with the additional stuff that we've done around the circular and the financial inclusion teams.
That's Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, Barry. Elaine.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to quickly add my appreciation comments to Mark and his team for all the work that they've done here. I noticed that the chief financial officers and some of the heads of some of the supermarket chains were up against a Westminster committee yesterday regarding the food inflation and the difficulties that it's having on supply chains and in people's personal budgets. Obviously, all the work that Mark and his team have been doing, I think, has put us in a good position. Now this Good Food Nation Act has been passed. And also perhaps something that hasn't been touched on in the paper is I know that they've got aspirations to continue to build, along with the economic development officers, the community wealth building by using local suppliers, which again will help our local economy. So thank you very much, Mark and his team.
Thanks, Elaine. Okay, anyone else? Okay, can we go to recommendations? Can we agree the recommendations just with that wee bit about the report back included? Can we agree that? Okay. Now go to item 4E, and that's the introduction of the Women's Health Policy. And Amanda.
Thanks, Chair. Morning, members. The purpose of this report is to ask Cabinet to approve the introduction of a women's health policy as detailed within paragraphs 9 through to 16 of the report. The background is laid out in paragraphs 3 to 6, noting that following the approval of the menopause policy at Cabinet in September last year, a members officer working group was established to consider the wider women's health policy. The main reports laid out in paragraphs 9 through to 16, noting that the policy was developed in consultation with the trade unions, with representatives of the trade unions joining a member officer working group, which was chaired by Councillor Maitland and was attended by members of the Council's Equality Forum. We also issued a survey across all of East Ayrshire Council employees to obtain their views and how they felt what should be included within the policy, and to help scope the main aims of the policy, which are to educate and inform managers who feel they feel equipped to support employees in managing their health in the workplace, raise a greater awareness and understanding among the workforce, outline and support reasonable adjustments that are available, create a safe and supportive environment where employees feel confident enough to raise issues about their symptoms, ask for reasonable adjustments and ask for support to enable them to remain at work. Note that the two most common conditions affecting females are endometriosis and osteoporosis, and also noting the commitment to sign up to the Endometriosis Friendly Employer Scheme. Paragraphs 20 and 21 note that our trade unions have been fully involved and have agreed to the introduction of this policy. And I would also note in paragraph 23, quality impact assessment identified a number of protected characteristic groups which may be impacted, including those relating to age, gender, race and gender reassignment. However, these impacts are viewed as positive and there are no elements of direct or indirect discrimination. The recommendations are in paragraph 2, which is asking Cabinet to approve the introduction of the policy, noting the commitment to the endometriosis friendly scheme, and otherwise note the contents of the report. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much for that, Amanda. Claire.
I know we have a long agenda this morning, so I'll try and keep this brief, but I'm delighted to see this paper in front of me. If you told me when I was 13, I'd be sitting here umpteen years later doing something like this, I just wouldn't have believed you. The change in attitude and the change in stigma and the change in research has been great. However, what did come out of the survey was there is a lot more still to be done, especially trying to measure the impact on young people. And I know that Amanda and our staff are looking into that. However, I would like to thank Amanda. I'd like to thank all the members, all the officers that took part, especially the trade unions and all those that filled in the survey. The survey's on the portal if you'd like to see it. We actually got quite a good response. But again, the response was from the women that had already kind of found their voice and in this grew out of the menopause policy. So again, it was the older women who were filling in the survey, but I'd recommend everybody has a look at the survey. I would also like to thank Councillor Beverly Clark for inviting along the Royal Osteoporosis Society. She's very heavily involved with them. Getting a diagnosis of osteoporosis is as difficult as getting a diagnosis of endometriosis. So that's the two areas we'll continue to look onto. I don't want to sound negative. I think it was a fantastic outcome. I'm glad it's been incorporated into our policies, but a little bit of a way to go. So just thank you to everyone. And if anyone's interested, Beverly has lots of information on the Osteoporosis Society, and she said if you wish to, she can be contacted directly. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. Anyone else? Maureen?
Thank you very much. Certainly welcome the paper coming forward and certainly the policy itself, which refers to the support groups, which I think is something that is incredibly valuable and will provide ongoing long-term support. And the fact that we're talking about something that's locally based as well, I think is genuinely helpful. One of the questions that I've been asked to raise was, had any consideration been given to also looking at fibromyalgia in terms of the discussions, because that's obviously something that can have devastating effect? Or is that something that you would consider, Amanda, was covered by our other health policies?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Yes, it would be covered by our wider support and attendance at work policy, etc. But it is something we could look at within that. As you know, we've started developing a number of toolkits. One of the other ones we're working on just now is some other health conditions that where we're given specifics and specific supports, particularly if they're local. So happy to look at maybe a toolkit that would go along with the support and attendance at work specifically for that.
That would be really helpful. And again, I think if we have something that is always referring people back to local support networks, I think that is of particular interest and particular help and makes a lot of difference to people and enables them to continue on. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thankfully, we have these networks locally, and we'll make a note of that. Okay, anyone else? Okay, can we agree the recommendations? Okay, now on to item 5, which is subsidised school transport, and the paper is Kevin.
Thank you, Chair. Members, I have Laura and George with me this morning in supporting this paper. This report sets out the updated financial position for mainstream education transport and details of the proposed parent-carer letter and questionnaire. Education authorities have a statutory responsibility to make appropriate arrangements to provide the transport for pupils who live beyond a certain distance from school under the Education Scotland Act 1980. National guidance on the minimum distance that pupils should live from school before being entitled to free school transport is 2 miles up to the age of 8 and 3 miles for children aged 8 and over. In practice, the distance of 2 miles is typically applied to primary education and 3 miles for secondary education. The existing school transport provision was last revised on the 5th of December 2012, where Cabinet approved the following: free transport for primary schools living more than 1.5 miles from school, free transport for secondary pupils living more than 3 miles from school, and the establishment of a subsidised transport option for pupils living between 1.5 and 3 miles from school, and the provision of free transport for children in receipt of free school meals that live between 1.5 and 3 miles from the school. It was intended that subsidised transport would be funded by families paying 25% of the cost and the council paying 75% of the cost, supported through income generated through the sale of spare seats on school buses to other pupils not entitled, and through the sale of spare seats on school buses. While this approach was implemented, due to school contracts being managed effectively, there are very rarely more than a small number of spare seats available on school transport, resulting in only a modest income. As such, the provision of subsidised transport for pupils living between 1.5 and 3 miles from school is almost wholly funded by the council. The increasing cost of school transport has provided a significant challenge against the reducing budget, and the total school transport spend in financial year 22-23 was just over £4 million, resulting in a budget overspend of £440,000 against a budget of £3.637 million. This was a result of combined pressures of subsidised transport, inflation and catchment school year groups being full. The introduction of PSVAR measures will require the introduction of new or modified vehicles into the home to school bus operator market, which is expected to further increase costs. Indicative costs are estimated to be in the region of an additional £140,000 per annum over and above the current net costs. While there are some variances between qualifying requirements to access free school transport across authorities in Scotland, East Ayrshire is the only authority in Scotland to provide a subsidised service. Removal of this service would align East Ayrshire to the statutory recommendation and with a number of other authorities. Options for change. Option 1 is to keep the non-statutory subsidised transport service as it currently is for the academic year 23-24 and remove completely by July 2024, allowing parents and pupils to transition over this period and embrace safe active travel routes. Option 2, to lower the escalating costs of non-statutory subsidised transport, proceed with the parent carer questionnaire as Appendix 1 to phase out this service and realign transport for provision to statutory recommendations and remove from the 23-24 school year any new applications along with promoting safe active travel routes. An alternative option for those pupils in receipt of subsidised transport is the use of service buses. Legislation approved by the Scottish Parliament in March 2021, since amended, introduced a new statutory scheme allowing those under 22-year-olds and resident in Scotland to access free service bus travel through use of the National Entitlement Card and the Young Scot branded NEC from the 31st of January 2022. An exercise was undertaken to review the locations of those pupils accessing subsidised school transport with locally available bus routes, and this showed that for all communities receiving subsidised transport, there are local bus services within reasonable walking distance. Ayrshire Roads Alliance identified through school travel plans safe walking routes, and where there are pinch points, will develop engineered solutions to ensure continuous safe routes are available, utilising cycling walking safer routes and other funding streams. External funding applications would be made to Sustrans, cycling, walking safer routes and smarter choices, smarter places to support all active travel initiatives. Ayrshire Roads Alliance have consulted with Stagecoach, and whilst they have advised if there was an increase in demand, they would review vehicle allocation. However, this was dependent on timetabling and Stagecoach making a commercial decision on viability. The cost to the council to subsidise this non-statutory service is now just under £500,000 for the 22-23 academic year, and with costs continuing to increase, this unfortunately is not sustainable. The service is currently supplied as an add-on, and East Ayrshire Council is the only local authority in Scotland providing a subsidised service. The recommendations are contained in paragraph 2. Myself and officers are happy to take any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kevin, for all the hard work and others have put into this report. I think this is quite an important issue for us, and just maybe just to state at the outset, this is not about statutory services, but additional services that other councils currently don't provide. However, I'm going to say, having read the report and looked at the questionnaire, and and while I think we should continue our work in terms of promotion of safe active travel routes and active travel in general, and promote the young person's free bus travel. We need to continue our conversations with bus companies as well, and other providers, and must be wholly satisfied that these are all in place before we implement this action. So I would be proposing to defer any decision and ask for a further report back, and basically continuation of the current service that we provide until such times that we're able to give public assurance of that service. So members, I'm sure you get some questions around about the report as well, and we'll maybe come back to it and refine the recommendations. Elaine.
Thank you, Chair. I have to start by saying that I'm disappointed by several aspects of the report. I'm surprised that Cabinet has been asked to make a decision today by selecting from one of two options prior to the consultation with the impacted families. That's just not a logical approach to me, and I don't believe it's what we asked for back in March. So I'm sorry to be blunt, but I believe we do need to go back to the drawing board on this, particularly on the consultation survey for feedback. I do appreciate that is facing significant and recurring gap in the transport budget that needs to be addressed and fully understood by all stakeholders. And we need to work together to find the most prudent solution we can that minimises the impact on the children that use this service. If we only focus on the narrow lens of budget cuts, we risk introducing unintended consequences to our secondary schools. We therefore need to widen the scope of our thinking and engage all stakeholders, as you pointed out, in mature and meaningful conversations how to implement any changes. I am fully supportive of ARA's policy to develop safe, active travel routes which will bring benefits to residents across East Ayrshire. We do, however, need to be mindful, as Kevin pointed out, of areas that have pinch points that will require engineered solutions. For example, within my own ward, the stretch of Glasgow Road that runs from the Tesco roundabout to the roundabout at the entrance of the South Craig estate requires a more formalised pedestrian crossing in order to be considered a safe walking route. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Councillor Neil Ingram, who's the transport lead, for walking that route with me recently, and also for officers within Kevin's team that supplied some information in that regard. Now, last Monday, these chambers were full of primary and secondary schools, all here to receive their Clean Green Education Awards. I would suggest there's potential to involve the same climate champions in the development process for our active travel strategy going forward. Earlier this month, at one of our other cabinet meetings, we were celebrating the best ever attainment results by East Ayrshire students, and we should strive to make attendance at school as easy as possible in support of this. The best place for our young people to be is within a safe and nurturing school environment, interacting with their peers and learning from our dedicated teaching staff. So I would like to fully endorse and second the council leader's proposal today.
Thanks, Elaine. Anyone else? Jim?
Thanks to you. I'd certainly go along with the leaders proposing, and seconded by Councillor Cowan, but just pick up a couple of points in the paper. In the recommendation to promote young persons free bus travel as an alternative means of access and transport to school, it's good they can use it if there's a bus on that route, which kind of takes me on to, I think it was paragraph 21, I think you'd made reference to it as well, Kevin. An exercise was undertaken to review the locations of those pupils accessing subsidised transport with locally available bus routes. This showed that for all communities receiving subsidised transport, there are local bus services within reasonable walking distance. Well, that's not actually the case now, and I know during that you made reference to having discussions with Stagecoach, and I think what we can establish, and it's already been established because we've saw the numbers dropping from 900 to 600. So clearly the introduction of the NEC card, where there is services, it's working in public transport, is available at school times. It's therefore an imperative that we and the public focus their attention on Stagecoach to provide that service that's there, and the demand for it's clearly evident. I think I've said on many occasions at community planning partnership meetings that there's missing pieces for us, and it's all right the council and the public sector, third sector working together, but where the importance of the private sector and commercial opportunities are there, and they're crucial. Public transport links are missing, then there's something missing there. I think recently we witnessed what happened with Stagecoach withdrew their services without only consultation, whereas in upheaval that created at Kilmarnock. So to do that, we need to work collaboratively with them, and I think it benefits both us for us to achieve the pressures that's on our budget, but also for a commercial operation point of view for Stagecoach, that we really do pursue that vigorously to try and get some sort of transport. I'll never move away from the active travel strategy because I understand the thinking behind that, and I think it's really important that we push that. But I've also got to say I think there's got to be a choice, and if there's no bus on that route, and whether it's walking, scooting or cycling, there's got to be a choice to get them there in the depths of the winter when it's the cold, wet, dirty, rainy mornings that we never want to ride to school, and especially after back a 2.8 mile walk or cycle. So there's got to be alternatives there. So I would certainly concur with what's been proposed earlier.
Thanks very much, Jim. That's good points. And I think the points that Elaine made in terms of our active champions, we heard all about number of steps pupils were walking. Some schools were being able to get enough steps to walk to the moon and stuff like that. The young people get this, but we need to develop a solution with them, and one that's safe. And I think that's a priority for us all. Jackie,
can I just ask that we have a clear communication out to all parents and schools and staff, preferably today, because this is coming out and parents don't know what's going to happen to their child on August. We stop on Friday, and you've got situations where you've got pupils transferring from P7 into first year, and they don't even have a seat on a bus, whereas they've got their siblings who do. It's been really disappointing that we've come to the very last meeting of Cabinet with this paper, and all the upheaval and the frustration and the angst it's caused amongst parents. I mean, my emails, I have got lots of individual cases of why they shouldn't have it. I'm not going into that. I think it should be looked at earlier in the term, and I'm pleased that it's going to be delayed. But we need to have clear communication, and we need to know what we're asking and what's out there in alternatives.
No, I think, you know, we can put some letters out to reassure parents straight away. We can manage to get something out, hopefully. If not today, then, you know, before the school breaks up, which is the next 2 days. So we'll try and get that to parents as quickly and as concise as we can. But hopefully that is a bit, you know, reassurance that we're not going to put this, impose any, you know, implement any charges, you know, in terms of the report. Someone's wanting in, who's it? Barry.
Thanks, Leader, and I think Jackie makes some excellent points. The fact is that the proposed consultation, and I use the word consultation loosely, I don't think really was a consultation. I would certainly look to see the status quo remain, in that we do not take any of the recommendations that have been put before us, and I welcome the comments made by other members. I'm going to make a particular reference within my own ward, and that relates to the Westland Walk development, the Barrett development at the top of Glasgow Road on the east side. There is no footpath on the east side of Glasgow Road beyond South Craigs Roundabout and south until you get to De Walden Drive. So actually, as it stands right now, that safe route, and I use that loosely because, again, I don't believe it is safe, means you're crossing one of the busiest arterial routes into and out of Kilmarnock at Glasgow Road at the South Craig Roundabout, for children to walk down until they get to basically Tesco and De Walden Drive, to cross back again for children who live in my ward on the east side of Glasgow Road. That's not sustainable. That is absolutely not an acceptable walking route, in my opinion. I think the way this has been handled, in my opinion, has not put us in the best light as an authority. And Jackie is absolutely correct to say that we are here on Tuesday, our schools finish on Friday, and yet we are debating fairly major impact on many families within Kilmarnock. So from my point of view, I would not want to see any of these recommendations taken forward. I believe that is the position being expressed by the administration. That is welcomed. I think it's been badly handled. This should have come long before now. And I actually agree with Councillor Cowan's points that in terms of what I think was asked for previously by Cabinet, these recommendations don't certainly reflect that. But I would ask again, and I've asked before, that ARA give serious consideration to a footpath on the east side of Glasgow Road, if they are looking seriously at active travel routes in and around Kilmarnock. Thanks.
Thanks, Barry. No, just to be absolutely clear, in terms of the first two recommendations, I hope we can support them, because somebody, you know, you make the point in terms of safer walking routes, and some of them, I'm not familiar completely with the one that you mentioned in your ward, but I know there's ones in my ward as well, you know, that I would be advocating. So we really need to develop, and we need to make progress on developing safer active travel routes, and hopefully with the Infinity project and other schemes that will certainly be quite a significant investment into safer routes. And also, you know, we need to keep promoting free bus travel as well. But other than that, I would be taking any proposals. But I think we need to, you know, we are the only local authority that is going beyond the statutory minimum. And we need to look at that in some kind of detail as well. And you know, we'll bring our report back at some point. you know, the timing's not been perfect, and I think we'd accept that. And you know, your parents were, you know, just 2 days before the schools break up. But hopefully, it's a positive story for them. And it's, I know a couple of my colleagues want to come in. Elaine.
Thank you, Chair. It's just quickly to reassure Councillor Douglas, the area I referred to in my ward, that road is actually the boundary between Ward 2 and Ward 4, so it has been highlighted with FARA and with the spokesperson for transport.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I just want to echo a number of the points that members have made. Certainly, if we're asking our kids to walk to school or use active travel, there needs to be safe routes. That goes without question. And definitely the area that Councillor Douglas pointed out was exactly where myself and Councillor Cowan were kind of focused on. In regard to the under 22 travel, absolutely, let's promote it. But we need to recognise that at that time in the morning, peak times, asking our kids to come into the bus station as well as other travellers at that time could be problematic. So it would be really useful if we could work with bus providers, Stagecoach exactly, to look at direct bus routes where possible. I know that they are looking at the viability of that, but certainly I would really be keen to explore that further. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Neil. Excuse me. David, you want to come in?
Chair, just on a technical point, obviously each and every decision of Cabinet is formally subject to the potential for call-in, noting the will of Cabinet to put a message out to parents on an outcome today. That would need Cabinet just to agree to take that action, notwithstanding the potential for call-in. And I did say it's a technicality because given there's been cross-party support for the position reached today, a call-in is clearly unlikely. But Cabinet would just need to agree as a further recommendation that the normal call-in arrangements wouldn't apply to allow the assurance that's been identified to be given to parents in terms of a clean outcome. It's the difference between a letter to parents saying this won't happen in August and a letter to parents saying this won't happen in August, subject to a call-in that probably is not going to happen. So if Cabinet's happy with that, then it would be an occasion when the call-in should be deferred. It doesn't mean it can't be called in its merits, but the decision would have been taken in order to give that assurance. So it's just to flag up the implications for call-in of the decision that's been proposed.
No, that's helpful, David, and I think we would want to make it as clear as we can with to parents, and I would support that. Maureen.
Thank you very much. I think absolute clarity for parents is the optimum here that we're actually looking for, and I'm certainly happy to take the monitoring officer's suggestion and move that one forward. This is not an easy issue. I had the opportunity yesterday to look again at the paper, which I think is our document entitled Privileged Seats, which is the one that we actually use at this moment in time. In looking at that, and I think we need just some clarification for members in relation to that, because I think some of these would be issues where there were privileged seats, and it's very clear within that document itself, which is the one that we are currently using, that it sets out very clearly within the document, which says that a decision on privileged seat access, which is whereby parents are actually able to make a contribution towards the cost of a seat, is not guaranteed from the beginning of August, but that applications are considered and that a decision is actually taken in September. So again, I think that's something that we just need to have some more clarification from officers, that there is still no guarantee of access for privileged seats, and that if there is oversubscription from privileged seats at the moment, then that is done. I understand that if there are multiple children travelling from the one address, that the privileged seat is given to the youngest child. I also understand that in relation to that, that if there is oversubscription, then the privileged seats are awarded by means of ballot. So again, what I want is I want members to be absolutely clear that that's something that exists at this moment in time. So the proposals that are being put forward are not seeking to make any changes to that active process. And what we would now be in, because my understanding also is that parents were given the information that no new applications from this new term coming forward would be accepted. So it's just absolute clarity that we would be therefore in the business of now accepting new applications going forward. And again, clarity for parents against what we actually have on offer in relation to privileged seats is something that's really important. The points that are made in terms of bus services and stagecoach, I think does raise the question for us as a council that we have to look at again as what are our options within municipal bus schemes, again, to look at that. So again, I'm looking for some comment on that as to how we would wisely progress with that. That's incredibly important. We again look, when we look at point 10, the point is made and is well made within the paper itself that there have been changes to the school catchment since 2013, 2014. So again, a question that I have to ask at that point is confirmation. Was the issue of increasing school transport costs highlighted for us to consider as a risk factor in relation to changing the school? That's certainly something that we have to be aware of. We've seen this morning already a paper where Mark has presented to us what some of the risks are in terms of half-price school meals. So we've certainly had that flagged up. I would suggest that was an example of good practice for us to do, to take account of. I am asking for confirmation, please, in relation to changes to the school catchment areas. Were those highlighted as risk areas? That's certainly something that I need information on going forward. Again, on the issue of changes to school catchment areas, we hear that the provision that we have in East Ayrshire is currently unique to East Ayrshire. The question has to be asked, when we consider Scotland as a whole, have we seen areas in Scotland who have had the significant changes to school catchment areas that we have over the time that we have considered this? That's certainly a factor that we have to take account of. We then look at paragraph 24, which is an option 2, and it talks about what those are actually charged out. Now, surely this too would increase if the overall cost increases change, because it's actually put forward as a percentage cost at this moment in time. So I would want to know that officers would be considering that. When I consider the offer that we have in terms of what has been put forward, not as a consultation, I have to say, but as a survey. And I think there is quite a difference in terms of what a consultation is and what a survey is. So we have to be very clear. Are we seeking to survey, or are we genuinely seeking to go forward with a proposal that we are seeking consultation to? Because I think best practice and guidelines for how those two activities are conducted are quite different, and we need to be clear on that. Again, we've had some concerns raised very reasonably by parents, and concerns about the status of what we actually have at the moment, because when you use the QR code, you can actually go on and work your way through that. Again, I think we've had some reassurances, but I think it's best to have it in this place that anybody who has actually done that and gone through the QR questionnaire, that none of their comments on those are actually live at this moment in time. That's important, that we have to be clear about that. I certainly support everything that Councillor Cowan has actually said. The irony, I'm sure, is not lost on anybody of having all the young people go forward for their eco flags. And then we have the other aspect that is a very sincere aspect within our school, and that is that we encourage our schools to move towards rights respecting schools. One of the affected areas is certainly On Thank Primary, and On Thank Primary, as we have applauded in this chamber, are a gold awarded rights respecting school, which is a magnificent achievement that the school actually have. We therefore cannot in any way continue forward to make policy changes, to make decisions, to take decisions which directly impact on young people without actually directly engaging directly with young people and asking young people what their opinions are. If we are encouraging rights respecting schools as a principle, we then, whenever we are considering issues which are going to have direct, and this would be direct and significant impacts on our young people, we have to then think about how we are engaging with them. So I would consider that what we have seen at the moment on this QR code as a survey is not something that is actually fit for what we have to do. I have been very privileged, because it's always a help from my generation when we are challenged by younger generations. And I have had the opportunity and taken the opportunity to engage with a young person within my own ward who saw fit to be very concerned about this proposed change and actually move forward to a survey, and to actually engage and to not only put forward that her concerns and issues that she saw with this policy change that we were considering, but also to look at what would not just be the impacts for her, what would be the impacts for her wider community. She actually went across her year group. There are 96 people in her year group. 90 people agreed with her that actually making the changes that were proposed in relation to school transport would be disastrous, would lead them into unsafe and dangerous situations. We as politicians know everything about asking for opinions. If we were to go out and do any door knocking and we got 90 people out of a possible constituency of 96 to agree with our point of view, my goodness, that would be a real achievement, something that we would be really positive about. In speaking to this young person, who I have every reason to believe is fairly typical of our young people, I discovered that this was a young person who is about to move into first year, who has at this point in their life never been on a bus, on public transport on their own to date. Now, the transitions that we hear about and the impact of those transitions going from primary to secondary are significant. We do a great deal of work. We undertake a great deal of activity to make sure that we smooth out what any of the issues are. Could I suggest that when we are considering active travel, that one of the ways that we have to look at active travel is that we have to look at making sure that our young people are actually fully equipped with the skills and the experiences to be able to undertake that. Moving from primary to secondary is a huge transition. Let's not be in the business of putting any more barriers in paths when we've already done a lot of work previously in removing barriers that we know actually exist. Points have been well raised in terms of treacherous roads. Not my words, the words of young person themselves, which means that they are much more powerful. This is what their focus is. Is this really the kind of council that we want to be? We have heard, we have discussed, we have raised our concerns, we have debated about the issues that young people, particularly in this age group, have sustained during COVID. Here is more difficulty that we are placing in the path of disadvantaged young people. We also have had, regretfully, really bad press in relation to our local bus station. That has effectively raised real concern in the minds of young people. Young people are telling me directly that they feel that the bus station can be a dangerous place, that they consider that actually asking our young people to use a dangerous place would be an outrageous and despicable thing for us to do. Again, not my words, words that are being brought forward. I have got young people telling me that they would feel so unsafe that they consider that they would have their human rights potentially breached. When I have actually gone and looked at rights of the child, I certainly would be minded to consider that Article 3, Article 12, Article 18 and Article 17 are rights that we really require to consider in terms of any changes that we make in relation to this policy. So again, when we are experiencing that we are developing young people to the stage that they come forward with ideas, that they have success in looking at climate change, that they have success in standing up for their rights, it is absolutely imperative that we as an authority must properly engage. And I am very pleased that sense, even although it is at the absolute minute to midnight in relation to this, has actually been seen, and that we are not agreeing either option 1 or option 2 in this paper. I am very, very happy to work on a cross-party basis to ensure that any consultation, any survey that we do takes account of all of the considerable depth of information based on concerns that we have from young people themselves already, and also from our parents, many of whom have actively engaged with what the issues actually are, and we have to take sincere account of that going forward. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Maureen. Yeah, I think just, maybe just to sum up in terms of where we are, I mean, what we're trying to do here, it's very clear, is to promote safe routes and to promote active travel. That's something we heard last week from our young people, that they can see the need in terms of climate change and what an active lifestyle brings in terms of fitness, etc., and health, and all the benefits. And they can tell us about that. So absolutely, in terms of, I think the questionnaire was only one part of that consultation process. And, you absolutely need to engage with our parents, with our young people, and, and the whole school community as part of that process. And hopefully that's something we can do. And we hear about, dangerous roads and issues in terms of, but we've got to realise that this is having an impact on the roads budget. So we really need at some point to deal with this, because the last thing we want to do is underinvest in road safety and roads themselves. So that's something we really need to address longer term. So we need to come back with a plan, hopefully working across all the members can be involved and put their names to, and something that our young people can support. It's a tough ask, and for our staff to do, road staff, but I think it'll be worthwhile at the end of the day. And also in terms of the commercial operators, there's something in it for them as well, in terms of the active travel, the free subsidised bus travel that's there will encourage people to use their buses. So that's something we should also be having conversations with them to encourage them to do, so that that's used not just at school time but right throughout the full year. So, colleagues, I think we need to really make sure we communicate this to parents and staff as soon as we can, by whatever means, whether it's both a letter or an email or whatever. But I'll pass that on to Eddie and the team to make sure that's done before the schools hopefully break up on Friday. Eddie, did you want to go on?
Yeah, just one point I think is really relevant, Kevin. I know there's a fair amount of work required to identify the safe routes, all the routes that's going to the schools, and to put them into practice, plan the works, complete the works. And I'm conscious when the timing of the paper coming back to us that there is plenty of time for the works to be completed, and when we bring the paper back, so we're not in this scenario that we're sitting now just coming to the end of term. So a bit of planning around about that, and maybe bring something towards us before that when the paper's likely to come.
Thanks, Jim. Eddie.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, obviously, just for clarification, in terms of where we're going. So what Cabinet is saying is that we are agreeing to recommendation 1 and 2. The additional recommendation that David has issued, in terms of the Governance and Scrutiny Committee, and deferring, any other, recommendation that's there.
Thanks, Eddie. Maureen.
But I think that we also need to agree what our engagement strategy is actually going to be. And I'm still just looking for clarification in relation to municipal buses, and also in terms of the privileged seats, because I think that's something that we need to, at the same time that we inform parents of this decision, we need to refer them to the privileged seats document that actually exists, and that's how we expect we're going to work in the new term.
Through you, Chair. In terms of municipal buses, we brought a piece of work to Cabinet in March with the previous school transport paper, and we have had some discussions with Highland Council about how they deliver municipal bus service. we had parked that at this moment in time in terms of this paper. So we will go back to Highland Council again and get further information, and we'll sit down with colleagues in Highland Council and get this detailed out and how we can get it to operate. I would need to speak to finance as well in terms of how it's funded, etc. In terms of the privileged seats, I would ask George to come in on that one, Councillor, and I'll hand over to George.
Thanks. Through you, Chair. Just for clarity, a privileged seat is something above the non-statutory, if that makes sense. So, for example, parents will come to us if they've certain work commitments that, you know, they might live 2 streets away from the school that their children attend, but because they're leaving early in the morning, they want to take them and drop them for care at grandparents. So if we have additional capacity, whereas by we actually continually monitor capacity, for example, so we've got 65 eligible pupils in that particular area, if we take North West Kilmarnock, that are entitled to access the subsidised service. And the capacity of the vehicle 70. If we get an application, we would then approve that application, but it's on the basis of that it can be taken away at short notice, because you could have a family that moves into the area a month later who then are entitled to access the subsidised service, so then they would have to forfeit that place. There's very, very minimal, I think this year alone, right across East Ayrshire, we're talking about 12 privileged seats allocated in total. So it's very, very minimal, and that supports family. You're right, Councillor Mackay, there was an issue a number of years ago where there was oversubscription in the south of Kilmarnock, and there were issues raised by elected members at that time. And the decision was taken that if there was oversubscription for privileged seats, we would then do it in a form where the youngest people would get access first, because we thought that was a fair and thing to do, rather than, you know, 11-year-old against a 16-year-old, for example. And if we got to a stage, which we did to a very one odd occasion, where they were all the same age, so rather than preferences come in, let's say, to the mailbox for who should get, there was then a ballot held in terms of who would get from that, which was a fair and transparent way to allocate that provision at that time. But touch wood, we've not had anything like that since. But I just want it to be clear, only the privileged seat, that's exceptions to the rule, and it's to try and support families, because we're all about supporting families. If we've got a spare seat on a bus and someone's looking at it and they're not entitled, we're not going to say, no, cheerio, you know, it's about that, but it's only understanding that it can be removed. We normally give a week's notice if we have to, because if entitled pupils come on, obviously they take preference. Hopefully that kind of tidies that part up.
Thanks, Josh. I think that. Kev, did you want to come in with something?
Yeah, it's just in terms of the communication element. We have got information ready to go, and we'll get that out this week. And we'll discuss with colleagues and comms just any finer detail that we want to amend on the communications going out.
Okay, we've had a good discussion. Just want to tie things up here, Murray.
I think in terms of the engagement strategy, we have got really well developed sources within our schools and routines within our schools in terms of all school assemblies. We have got young people representing school councils. We have mechanisms to be able to do this. We have got parent councils across all our schools. We have got a parent steering group. So we have got real sources that we can get this engagement done, and done really well. And I also think that there is something about engaging with the wider public, because the more that we actually pursue a policy of active transport. That's going to have an impact in terms of the wider public and their terms of usage of public transport. So I think we really do have to think extensively in terms of getting this engagement strategy right. But equally, let's use the structures that we've got to make sure that we get uptake of that as good as it possibly can be.
And we're investing significantly in terms of walking and cycling, in terms of safer routes, and it's good. I mean, these should be seen as actual opportunities and use them, and hopefully Kevin can build, strategy for the future and consultation process. Kevin?
I would propose that we develop an active travel forum and we work with stakeholders and schools, etc.
Yeah, that's something we could look at. Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Okay, the changes and recommendations. Can we read the recommendations? Okay. Now going to item 6, final E item, and that is update on current and future employability activity delivered by East Ayrshire Council Services. David.
Thanks, Chair. This is a joint education and economic growth report, and the purpose of this report is to provide Cabinet with a review of the employability work streams delivered by the Council Services during 22-23 period via the No One Left Behind funding and also the European Social Fund programmes, and to set out details of the revised operating model through the Local Employability Partnership, which is being introduced for 23-24 through both the UK Government Shared Prosperity Fund and the recently announced Scottish Government No One Left Behind funding. Employability plays an essential role in delivering the Scottish Government's aim of tackling poverty, providing inclusion and social justice, and creating a fair and prosperous Scotland. It's a key component of the National Strategy for Economic Transformation, contributing to the vision for a strong economy where good, secure and well-paid jobs and growing businesses have driven significant reduction in poverty, and in particular child poverty. Paragraphs 3 to 7 sets out the national, regional and local position and the alignment of the recently published Ayrshire Regional Economic Strategy and the East Ayrshire Community Plan with employability objectives. As members will be aware, the East Ayrshire Local Employability Partnership is a local strategic multi-agency partnership for taking forward the employability agenda and aims to take a strong collaborative approach to delivery. It has oversight of the strategic development and governance of employability and skills in East Ayrshire, and paragraphs 8 through to 15 sets out the interaction of the Council's Employability Project Board with the LEP and the delivery of the Shared Prosperity and No One Left Behind investment plans. The work of the Local Employability Partnership is evidence-driven, with employability monitoring reports submitted to both Scottish Government and UK Government, and paragraphs 14 and 15 highlight the outcomes for the 551 participants to the No One Left Behind service delivery through the various programmes. Paragraph 16 through to 19 sets out the background at a regional level with the Ayrshire Regional Skills Investment Plan, which was published by Skills Development Scotland in summer 2022, and identifies areas for investment to address skills supply challenges and the shortages, and is supported by a multi-agency regional skills working group. The Ayrshire Skills Fund is a responsive skills fund to drive inclusive growth to support skills interventions and supported through the Ayrshire Growth Deal. Currently, the outline business case is being finalised with both Scottish Government and UK Government, with the final business case being considered by the Ayrshire Economic Partnership and Joint Committee after the recess. Once approved by the Joint Committee, the programme will be implemented. Paragraphs 20 to 21 highlights the Working for a Healthier Economy Ayrshire Growth Deal project delivered by NHS Salus, which is integrated into the employability and business support frameworks, which targets large-scale investment in occupational health services both for employees of local businesses and to those seeking employment, to ensure that Ayrshire has a requisite workforce to drive future economic growth. Paragraphs 22 to 23 sets out the Community Wealth Building Fair Employment Workstream and the Fair Work Ayrshire programme, which is a dedicated service that works with employers to implement fair work in workplaces across Ayrshire, and through these interventions has assisted in 137 businesses in East Ayrshire since its launch, of whom 121 have action plans in progress or have been completed. Members will recall previous Cabinet reports setting out the European Social Fund programmes, which is now at conclusion since March 2023. The table in paragraph 25 sets out the £8.4 million investment in employability since 2015, and paragraphs 24 to 28 sets out the support programmes and outcomes through the East Ayrshire Works employability pipeline over the last year. Paragraphs 29 to 30 highlights the success of the long-term unemployment programme, targeting support to 60 eligible adults aged 25 or over who have experienced sustained periods of joblessness. Paragraphs 31 to 35, members will recall the Cabinet report of 8th of March, where the UK Government's Community Renewal Fund reported the outcomes of the 4 projects which were awarded funding in East Ayrshire. In paragraphs 36 through to 41, highlights the excellent work delivered at SL33 and the successful delivery by Education Services of the Young Persons Guarantee programme, which was linked with the business community and aligned with the Foundation apprenticeship programmes. While ring-fence funding has been mainstreamed with the new No One Left Behind funding offer, the successes that have been delivered from this programme will be set out under the new funding model. Paragraphs 42 to 45 sets out the work colleagues in education are undertaking to embed local labour market information in the curriculum right across our secondary schools to enhance their understanding of the skills landscape and sector growth areas. Head teachers attended a half-day future skills workshop at Ayrshire College in October 22, covering the future rollout of the Ayrshire Growth Deal projects, followed by a second meeting for the deputy heads, which looked to raise the local awareness of the importance of local labour marketing information and the current and future skills gaps across schools and linked in with senior leadership teams. As we develop the regional skills, the regional sector work streams, Fair Work and the Ayrshire Growth Deal programmes, colleagues in education will be part of the development of this integrated approach to ensure that we can maximise career opportunities for our young workforce. Paragraphs 46 to 49 highlights the work the Vibrant Communities team are undertaking with adults and parents during 22-23, including family literacy and numeracy learning and the parental engagement sessions via the Scottish Attainment Challenge. As a first step, numeracy workshops and training to adults, families and employees has been delivered across the authority through a variety of numeracy-based learning workshops. As part of the Shared Prosperity funding, the SQA accreditation is being finalised with a decision imminent to roll this out across the council area. As reported to Cabinet, the Jobs and Training Scheme operated by People and Culture supports apprenticeships and interns within the council, and with economic growth we are supporting the local businesses. To date, 139 young people have been appointed within the council and 39 within local businesses. Paragraphs 52 and 53 highlight the direct support provided by the financial inclusion team within the employability work that we undertake. Paragraphs 54 sets out the No One Left Behind 23-24 delivery model, and the table in paragraph 55 highlights the allocation of the 1.83 million awarded by the Scottish Government on the 30th of May 2023. The investment comprises £716,000 for all age employability support and £1.1 million for tackling child poverty. Prior to the confirmation of the allocation of the funding, detailed work was carried out by the Council and its Employability Project Board, along with liaising with Slade and the Scottish Government to ensure that the employability delivery proposals met with the Scottish Government approval principles. The draft proposals were then reviewed by the Local Employability Partnership, and this critical review has enabled the finalised proposals, as you see, set out in Appendix 1, which details the annual investment plan to provide support for an all-age employability offer which tackles child poverty, targeted at parents, and is aligned with the Shared Prosperity Fund and provides a comprehensive employability offer aligned with the external agencies and third sector and utilises existing procurement arrangements. Given the timing of the No One Left Behind funding award, a joint paper from Education and Economic Growth will be provided after the recess on the updated operating plan, which will align with the Scottish Government's delivery plan for the 23 to 26 period, which is due for publication. Paragraph 62 to 74 sets out the shared prosperity employability delivery, which has been reported to Cabinet the 18th of January. However, I would highlight the new recruitment incentive and training grants for eligible candidates of 25 and over has been launched following agreement with the local employability partnership, and this will deliver direct support to both individuals and businesses alike. Paragraph 75 to 78 highlights that employability services across the council are being delivered from a range of funds, and the compliance monitoring arrangements from the European Social Funds have been transferred into the No One Left Behind and Shared Prosperity funding to provide a comprehensive monitoring regime supported by the Cognisoft system, which will be rolled out across all employability services to enable a single data set for all employability transactions. Paragraph 79 and 80 sets out the people and culture implications with the additional recruitment and education, and the report aligns with the fair employment pillar of community wealth building. Chair, in conclusion, the range of activities highlighted in this report delivered across the council services and external providers demonstrates the complexities of the employability pipeline and the need to ensure a successful transition to shared prosperity fund and No One Left Behind funding to maximise impact of these programmes for clients and communities. Services will continue to support individuals into work, training or education, and for those already in work to assist them in terms of career progression. The Employability Project Board will maintain its oversight role, helping to ensure that resources are maximised and aligned with the objectives of the local employability partnership. The recommendations are set out in paragraph 2, and I would highlight item 6, which requires that we provide the Scottish Government with the signed grant letter by the 30th of June to allow us to draw down the funding and to commence the programmes. Chair, I'm joined with Marjorie Harvey and Morgan Middlemas from the Education Employability team, and Linda and I would be happy to answer any questions. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks very much, David. An excellent report, and good to see the work that we're doing, with the young persons guarantee and the local employability partnership, and how that complements the work we're doing with apprenticeships and then graduate interns. But I'll just say, Marjorie and the team are here. Just that anybody that hasn't had the opportunity to see some of the work we're doing in SL33, engaging with some of the young people that have otherwise been disengaged, it really is quite a great job that you're doing out there, and we're really proud of what's going on in there. And I just commend to some of the other cabinet members, if you've not been there yet, to go down and have a look at it. I'm sure you'd be welcomed. Members, do we have any kind of questions or points want to raise? Maureen.
Thank you. I think the fact that Marjorie's here, I really do need to sort of just ask a question. I would certainly endorse everything that you say about SL33. So it's just to give you the profile to say, give me a timescale for SL36, Marjorie, or 66. And also to note that we had the opportunity last week to be in Stewarton to see the showcase when you had some of your superstars there. So if you'd like to just tell us, please, about the numbers and the course that they have just completed and their success. And then just before SL33, David, what we have got under the Community Renewal Fund, that looks an incredibly impressive output that you have 56 people engaging with the job search, 26 actually gaining a qualification, and 18 entered into employment. That looks like something that's incredibly cost effective to do. And I wonder if one of the things that you're doing overall is you're looking at actually what the unit cost of getting somebody into employment is, and if that's some stats that we could have, because obviously what we want to do is we want to do more and more of the things that are really effective and cost effective, and not as much of the things that perhaps have higher costs, unless of course there are particular reasons, and perhaps Marjorie is going to give us some of those as to why we need to spend more money in some circumstances to get somebody job ready. Thanks very much, Marjorie.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Chair.
Marjorie.
So SL66, that is en route, that's starting as we speak, so that's underway. So we're hoping for the academic year to start for the end of August, beginning of September. So really excited with that. There was just a wee few issues going along the line, but we're getting there with that. The project search is what you witnessed last week. That was an absolutely amazing programme that we have. We had 7 interns that take part in we say a programme, it's an actual course that we do jointly with NHS, Council and my mind's went blank. The college. That's I've not got my triangle in front of me. I'm always do the triangle. And that's Lauren. Lauren always comes with me to tell us what it's all about. So Project Search runs an academic year. 7 interns have completed that year and they do 10 weeks work experience within either the college, the council or within the NHS. Primarily we get the placements within the NHS, and that's really to see the abilities, to see what their skill setting is, to bring them out to the world of work. So we had it's the 10th year anniversary this year, and that's where we're trying to relaunch what Project Search is about. So there'll be a lot of media going about, so please share it, and that'll show you what they have been doing. The video is really good. It shows you the world of work, how they're actually, what they're doing in their placements. And also we want to open the doors to employers to actually say, you know, these young people need that wee hand to get the jobs, and we have the backing of the council. Eddie's really good at getting us all the placements and all the team leaders. So they had them all there to see them graduating. So yeah, all looks good there. And this year we actually have got 12 interns that is going to be recruited for August, which we've not had that for years. We've actually got a waiting list, which maybe next year I'll maybe do a doubler. Wait and see.
Through you, Chair, I'll just come in and answer that last question. I mean, the unit costs about employability is something that we're obviously very focused on. I mean, some of there is quite a bit of learning we have to take on board because the individuals have different learning needs, and obviously part of the supported employment you know, there is quite a significant amount of investment in that, and that can be a variable. So it's difficult to just set out a kind of effective cost model for that because everybody's, you know, different people have different learning needs. That said, the CRF programme that highlights that was a model that you know, it wasn't run by ourselves. It was run by the third sector and others. We do learn from programmes, and that's some of the work that we take on board in the Local Employability Project Board to understand what is working and what's not working. Colleagues with me today had met with the third sector just to kind of set out some of the kind of you know, when they look to take on board some of the programmes through the No One Left Behind, to give them a kind of an overview of what will be acceptable moving forward and what won't be. So it's not a case it's the same type of programme that we run each year. It is adapted to meet the needs of the individuals, and you know, whether those individuals need more support or not. So the one thing I would say is that in terms of our over procurement and that value for money, we will be doing a commodity strategy, and that will be coming back in due course through Cabinet, and we'll be setting out as part of our No One Left Behind delivery model just how we intend to deliver on that.
Thanks, David. Anyone else? Neil.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. Yeah, I was really grateful to Marjorie for inviting me along to see SL33 recently. It was really great to meet some of the team and hear about all the support given to our young folk and individuals in respect to skills and employability offered. I especially enjoyed meeting our new apprentice Lauren, who has taken up a position for customer service and is definitely a superstar. But it's really so important to support people in increasing the literacy, numeracy skills, allow people to explore their own skills, building their confidence and self-belief, and facilitating entry into the job market and the benefit that gives. So thank you.
Thanks, Neil. Ed, do you want to say a few words?
Thanks. I suppose a few things. I suppose first of all about Project Search, and I've been privileged enough to get to know, the 7 young folk, over the year, and it's been fantastic. And we were talking at their graduation on Friday, and this shows my age. I ended up quoting for Boys for the Black Stuff in terms of, talking about, if you think about what that was, it was people who felt, disenfranchised for the job market, about where they were with hope, etc. And Yosser reached the stage of saying, just give a job. And, these young folk have built so much hope into these young people over the year. It's not good enough just to give them the year. At the end of that, they need to get employment because they've got a huge amount to give. This is not a charity. This is a huge amount that they have to give in respect to that. Also, I would say, the type of work that's happened over the year in terms of a number of the programmes, myself and Joe, the head of finance and IT, on Friday, we will go and we will meet with the UK government. So ourselves, Glasgow and Dundee are the 3 councils in Scotland that will meet with the UK government for a discussion about what we want to achieve and how we've managed to do this, because remember, this is the switch over a European Social Fund monies in respect of that, and that includes the Secretary for Level Up Housing and Communities that we'll meet on Friday for a discussion around like that, in terms of how the application of resources can particularly help us in terms of employment of our folk here in East Ayrshire, with that as a focus. But it has been fantastic to see that, and I do know, like David has really focused on, money comes in so many different ways for this, that you end up with many different masters telling you what you need to do and how you need to deliver it. And it's actually for David and the team then to try and draw all that together to make sense of it here, so as we don't end up with duplication or gluts, etc. And that's why, David, working along with colleagues, will look at an overall, commodity strategy, and then look at how we then, deliver against that. So a great piece of work for us here in East Ayrshire. And of course, that was supported by the £6 million that the council chose to put in terms of, supplementing all these other funds that are there.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I did think I'd get Yosser Hughes quoted this morning, but no, I think that the point you make is really valid. You just need to, so many, unfortunately, so many young people in particular that are really looking for work and looking for training opportunities. We've just got to do the best we can in difficult circumstances. Gary, then I'll bring in Maureen.
Yeah, sorry, just to add a wee bit of information, and it's relatively new, but House and Asset Services filled 12 craft apprentice posts yesterday, and probably know, but one of the successful candidates was one of the Marjorie's team, and I'm sure that he wouldn't have been ready to come forward and gain that place without that background. So that's good, and it probably gives a real model for people coming through to see what can be achieved. So that's somebody on a really good career path now through that opportunity. So well done.
Good to hear. Absolutely good to hear. Maureen.
It is very good to hear, and it certainly it does show that when we have got the policies there, and when we start to actually get the policies aligned, and Councillor Cowan this morning made reference to the community wealth building, and this is again another aspect of this is real community wealth building, because what we are actually doing is looking for the future as to how we can actually make more and more people economically active. And that really does have to be our goal. And I also want to just commend David, because I know that he is balancing and doing the job that Mark is also trying to do as well. And that is knowing that the money will come in, but unfortunately the money is not coming in year. So there is that gap, but we're still able to go forward. So, you know, those are both aspects of people doing the jobs and balancing the budgets well. Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen. Okay, good hearing, and just thanks for the presentation, and good to, a bit of good news this morning. And that's always welcome. Okay, can we agree the recommendations? Okay, that completes the end of our E items. If the education spokespersons want to leave the chambers or sign off. Okay, we're going to item 7 now, which is East Ayrshire Health and Social Care Partnership, extension to the 24/7 supported accommodation, housing support at Cessnock Road in Hurlford, and Joe Gibson on the line. Hi, Joe.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. This report, which starts at page 55 of your papers, seeks Cabinet approval to extend a current contract with the Richmond Fellowship Trust until the 31st of March 2024 to allow completion of a current best value service review and ensure alignment with future commissioning plans. This report was considered by the Integration Joint Board and agreed on the 21st of June. The service referred to provides on-schedule care support, including through the night support for 13 tenants who live independently with a range of complex needs. These 13 people are aged from 16 upwards. As part of the HSCP's planned Best Value Service Review programme, we are currently engaged in a large Best Value Service Review of all commissioned mental health and learning disabilities supports in East Ayrshire. This review will complete in October to allow sufficient time for preparation of tenders and awarding of contracts to be in place for the 1st of April 2024. In terms of this specific contract, this contract was awarded on the 25th of September 2019 and is due to expire on the 24th of September 2023. Extending this contract for a further 6 months will provide stability for the staff and tenants while this review process is completed. So following IJB agreement on the 21st of June, Cabinet is asked to agree the proposed extension in terms of paragraph 21(2) of the standing orders and receive a direction in respect of implementation of the revised contractual arrangements. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Any questions? It's kind of straightforward. Can we agree the recommendations?
Right.
Okay. On to the next paper, which is the partnership negotiated contract with Ayrshire Council of Alcohol, and we are with you, supporting rapid access to drug and alcohol recovery service. Joe, it's you again.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to seek approval to... I've just realised I'm on mute. Can you hear me okay?
There was a wee delay there, Joe. Maybe go back to the...
Start again. Yeah. Thank you. So this paper seeks approval to directly award a negotiated contract to 2 providers in East Ayrshire. Please excuse me for 1 second. Apologies. So Cabinet is recommended to agree the proposed negotiated contracts from the 31st to the 31st of May 2026 in terms of paragraph 21 of the standing orders, and if agreed, to issue a direction in respect of implementation of the revised arrangements. You will all be acutely aware that drug overdose remains a huge issue in East Ayrshire and lives are lost too many times. These deaths are devastating and preventable. The evidence both nationally and locally shows that one of the biggest risk factors to someone losing their life to drugs or alcohol is not being in treatment. What the evidence also demonstrates that addiction is, as you know, a multifaceted issue made up of complex experiences of trauma and inequality. And psychological and social support is essential alongside clinical treatment for effective recovery. As a result of this evidence, and in line with national requirement around MAT standards, East Ayrshire introduced the RADAR service in 2021, Rapid Access to Drug and Alcohol Recovery. RADAR seeks to offer all of this through an innovative partnership between the NHS, We Are With You, Ayrshire Council on Alcohol, and Advocacy. Given the priority of this work and the requirement to meet MAT standards, it's recommended that this partnership is stabilised by awarding negotiated contracts for We Are With You and Ayrshire Council on Alcohol. This would be in line with the National Mission 5 years funding, which is available from 2021 to 2026. As set out in paragraph 11, we are building a recovery-orientated system of care in East Ayrshire, ensuring greater integration of supports and greater influence from people who use services. There is currently a review of the in-house delivered addiction services in East Ayrshire that is underway and due to report at the end of July. This will be followed in the autumn by a full best value service review of that wider recovery-orientated system of care in East Ayrshire. However, through engagement with the recovery system, it is clear that the current partnership offer via RADAR is effective and highly thought of. One example of that feedback is provided in Appendix 1. To come to the specifics of these two providers, We Are With You saw 929 people through RADAR in the last 2 years since the service was made operational. Ayrshire Council on Alcohol saw 422 people during that period. We Are With You is funded by the ADP to provide support for people with addiction to a value of £318,399 per year. This includes dedicated posts into RADAR. A negotiated contract from the 1st of October 23 to the 31st of May 26 would offer continued service delivery and sustainability. This contract would be managed directly by East Ayrshire and ties in, as I previously said, with the National Mission funding. In terms of Ayrshire Council on Alcohol, this service provides community support for those who suffer from alcohol and drug issues, and that community contract is managed by South Ayrshire. However, when RADAR was established, a contract variation was agreed to include a dedicated post for RADAR, and this is due to expire in 2023. Again, entering into a directly awarded contract for the RADAR only element of that contract, which is valued at £30,000 a year, from the 1st of October 23 to the 31st of May 26, would provide that much needed service continuity and sustainability. The IJB Integration Joint Board considered and agreed this proposal on the 21st of June, and Cabinet is asked to consider and agree the proposed negotiated contracts to the 31st of May 2026 in terms of paragraph 26 of standing orders, and if agreed, to offer a direction in relation to the implementation of the revised arrangements. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Joe. I'm not quite familiar with We Are With You. Are they seems to be quite a new group in the scene. Where are they based?
Thanks, Chair. They're actually a Scotland-wide. In fact, I think they have services in England as well. They're a well-established organisation that support people with drugs and alcohol, and we've been commissioning them for some time in East Ayrshire.
Eddie just says add action by a new name, so I know who they are, so that's fine. Yeah, that helps clarify matters. Colleagues, any comments or questions, Maureen?
I think it's just to repeat the comment I think I made at the IGIB, and that is, Joe, thank you very much for this. This is something that's valued. But again, we are waiting, I think, still the new drug death figures. And, you know, again, what we would have been useful would be if we had actually had those when we are considering these contracts. So again, it's just about us trying to get things in sync. I do understand that these are not always local issues that actually delay things, that these are national things. But I think it is important that we are looking at, when we're looking at contract awarding, we're also able to consider what has been the evidenced effectiveness of what we have actually done. So that's my only comment.
Claire?
I'd like to say thank you very much for the report, and it's good to see radar getting embedded as much as it is, and I would absolutely support the continuation of the contract to 26. And I think it's things like this, along with initiatives like the minimum alcohol price, and we saw the report coming back yesterday, we're beginning to make impacts. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Claire. No, absolutely. Eddie?
Thanks. I mean, I think, you know, my one comment is over the nature of the planning, the stability around this, the multi-year contracts around this. And I have to say, therefore, does it make sense when at times Scottish Government actually look at it as an in-year funding and actually looked at it as a single-year funding, and as you know, withdrew some funding from East Ayrshire, you know, because of the planning we'd done in a number of years ahead. And again, one of the things we're waiting to hear on is within the overall lifetime of the funding package, whether we get that resource back, because to give stability to our third sector partners in particular, we need to be able to plan multi-years, as this, you know, does here, and therefore multi-year funding is one of the essentials. Almost, yes, this is an alcohol and drugs field, but it's almost any partnership field with other sector partners is some of the areas we need to do that in.
Thanks, Eddie. Okay, colleagues, any other points? Okay, yeah, I mean, I think the rapid response is absolutely critical here. That this enables you both with intervention with drugs and alcohol-related issues. It's good to see. Sorry, Molly.
So just again, come back and say, of course, Joe, one of the issues that we do know is about working in partnerships. And unfortunately, I think we've been at the prison recently, and we have still heard that the bad practice of actually people's release times and release days makes it very difficult and puts people in very vulnerable position on discharge from prison, and makes it very difficult for services to then pick up. So again, the question here has to be, what progress are we making on that? How are we actually going to be directly influencing partners, particularly when we're talking about the prison coming within Scottish Prison Service in the near future? And what changes are we seeing within our services locally to take account of, unfortunately, still that poor practice?
Sorry. Joe.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Mackay raises a really significant issue, and one that does create huge vulnerability for individuals. We are very mindful of it. We've recently discussed with colleagues in justice and in primary care about the impact of releases, particularly on a Friday. I understand that nationally there's a move to make this not normal practice, but that is still under discussion nationally. Locally, we have agreed to pull together an urgent group, an urgent meeting covering primary care, justice and addictions and mental health services, to look at the issue locally and to build on the progress we're seeing with support to families affected by drug and alcohol who are also in the prison system, to build on that progress like we've seen with the Foundations Hub opening at HMP Kilmarnock, so that we can offer that support to more people. I think it's a work in progress and more needs to be done. I'm happy to come back with further detail on that in future if that would be of use. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Okay, thanks for that reassurance there, Joe. Okay, take you on, come on.
It's not on that point, it's just in relation to the recommendations, Chair. So I think the second recommendation talks about issuing a direction. It's technically the IJB that issues a direction to the council. That's already happened. So this is just a straight copy and paste from the IJB report. What it should note here in terms of the recommendations is to note that a direction has been issued in respect of implementation of the revised arrangements, just to keep that right, Chair.
Okay, okay, we're happy with that. Just so can we agree the recommendations, paragraph 4, just with the in terms of recommendation 2 to note, as Craig just described there. Quite happy with that. Okay, can we agree? Thank you. Okay, go to the next item, which is item 9, and that's the Tenant Support Fund. Maybe before I let Gary in, because he's very shy, it's good to see he's had a number of UK awards. It's came the Housing's way. One I just heard about this morning, which was the Professional of the Year, which was awarded to Wendy Johnson for Women in Housing Awards in Manchester. And also, I understand you said a UK award for the Housing in Witch Road as well at the end of the week. So 2 good UK awards coming to your housing service, and glad to hear that. So we hope we get some good news to present us this morning, Gary. So.
Okay, thanks, Chair. I'm actually delighted Wendy's online. She was too shy to go down to the award ceremony in Manchester, but I was absolutely delighted that she was successful, and I think it's great recognition not only for Wendy but for the whole team that work in housing. So thank you and good afternoon, members and colleagues. The purpose of this report is to request Cabinet approval for the creation of a £500,000 tenant support fund to alleviate the increasing cost of living and financial burden to council tenants. This is aimed at preventing homelessness, sustaining tenancies, mitigating fuel and child poverty, and assisting those in severe financial need. The recommendations are set out in paragraph 2 of the report, and they are to agree the creation of a £500,000 tenant support fund for East Ayrshire Council tenants, to agree the criteria for the delivery of the tenant support fund, and otherwise note the contents of the report. So paragraphs 3 to 10 set out the background to the fund, the challenges that our communities face in relation to unemployment, child poverty, in-work poverty, as well as rising levels of rent arrears. And the proposed fund supports delivery of the actions contained within the Rapid Rehousing Transition Plan and a proactive approach to homeless prevention, ahead of the implementation of the legislation relating to the prevention of homelessness duties later this year. The aims of the fund are set out in paragraphs 11 to 13. In recognising the significant impact of the cost of living on all of our tenants, and as part of a broader holistic homelessness prevention approach, the fund will be delivered under 3 key work streams. First being the prevention of homelessness, second, fuel support, and finally, extenuating circumstances. Important to point out that the fund will be used alongside other existing tools and financial support, such as discretionary housing payments, and it can cover a proportion or all of a tenant's rent arrears. It should not, however, be considered as a replacement for financial supports that are already available. It can also be used where other solutions are not available, and housing services will help to identify priority cases to ensure the fund is targeted at those who really need it most. Eligibility for the fund is set out at paragraphs 14 to 27. The Tenant Support Fund is open to all tenants experiencing difficulty paying their rent or fuel costs and are at risk now or in the near future of losing their tenancy as a result. Should a tenant have previously had a partial award considered under the Tenants Grant Fund, they may still be considered under the tenant support fund that's proposed for any balance of rent arrears. And ensuring the fund reaches those most at risk, an extenuating circumstances work stream is also included where vulnerabilities are identified within the household. The levels of engagement required by tenants are detailed, as well as the thresholds for payment, and each application will be considered in a holistic way across all 3 work streams. Details of the prevention of homelessness work stream are set out in paragraphs 28 to 34, which focuses on payments into the rent for those experiencing difficulties meeting their rent obligation. The fuel support is set out in paragraphs 35 to 37 for those with prepayment meters at risk of losing supply, or those residing in off-grid areas, along with extenuating circumstances at paragraphs 38 to 42, which capture other forms of financial assistance not covered by the previous 2 work streams. Paragraphs 43 to 53 highlight that the fund will be administered by the Universal Credit Support Team within Housing Services, who successfully administered the Tenants Grant Fund. This will ensure that comprehensive assessments of household circumstances are carried out, benefit uptake is maximised, and levels of debt are minimised wherever possible. The Tenant Support Fund will be promoted through internal and external council platforms, through social media and toolbox talks delivered to key stakeholders. The implications are set out in paragraphs 55 to 67, and I would draw members' attention to the financial risk implications in relation to the loss of rental income, the impact of financial stress, and associated fuel and child poverty on our most vulnerable tenants, increasing demand across a number of public services. In addition, the impact of fuel poverty on the material fabric of council houses potentially increases ongoing costs associated with repairs and maintenance. So to conclude, Chair, the current economic climate impacts our most vulnerable and is likely to continue to do so for some time. The introduction of the Tenant Support Fund provides a critical lifeline to households struggling to meet ongoing financial commitments, preventing homelessness, sustaining tenancies, and alleviating child and fuel poverty. Happy to take any questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Gary. I think that's a really good paper. You know, I think it came from response to all members who could see that, you know, homeless people, but all tenants are really struggling at the moment, just in terms of energy costs and other inflationary costs. So this goes some way to actually put real money into people's pockets, which, you know, it's the best way to tackle this head on. Some good initiatives here, and hopefully it's successful. Jim?
Thanks, Gary. Just kind of one question for me, and it came for the paper that Joe brought in about the Scottish Welfare Fund and how it was impacted when it was launched, and the necessity to put in low to moderate categories in that, and linking in with the Tenant Grant Fund with the introduction of the new Tenant Support Fund. How are you going to manage that?
So through you, Chair, can I bring Lisa Punton in, who can add some context to that? Thanks.
Thanks. Lisa?
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair. Yeah, thanks for that question, Councillor McMahon. So, as Gary's alluded to within the paper, the fund will complement existing processes that are already in place in relation to the Social Welfare Fund, discretionary housing payments, community care grants, etc. So, we don't intend to prioritise it as low, medium and high. What we will do is look at it holistically on a needs basis and regularly review the spend, and also in connection with colleagues within revenues and benefits. I'll have regular discussions with colleagues within there to see how their thresholds are sitting at that time, which could potentially impact on the spend and the need for increased spend within the Tenant Support Fund. So there will be absolutely close working, Councillor McMahon.
Sorry.
Thanks very much, Lisa. Any other questions, Maureen?
Just want to make a comment in relation to Wendy. Awards are great. Not all awards are equal. And I think Wendy and the work that she has done in relation to our refugees has been absolutely outstanding. and I'm absolutely thrilled to bits. So Wendy, really glad that you're on, really glad that the way that you work, the way that you're actually able to inspire the whole team and inspire all of us as well to do our absolute best here is just terrific, and really, really delighted that that has been acknowledged.
Thanks, Maureen. I think she's hiding somewhere there. She's hiding behind Lisa there. Come on, don't be shy. Wait, there she is. That wee round of applause. It's embarrassing even there. Okay, congratulations from the Cabinet this morning. And I'll tell you, Eddie and I were wondering if that was a real background, because it must be the tidiest room in, as Maureen will agree, in John Dickey Street. Okay, well. Okay, colleagues, any other points, any questions, or quite happy with things? Okay, thanks for that, and thanks, Gary, for that. Can we go to recommendations, and can we agree the recommendations? Okay. Next item is the review of the East Ayrshire Common Allocation Policy, and that's you again, Gary.
Thanks, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to seek approval from Cabinet for proposed changes to and the revised Common Allocation Policy, which is set out at Appendix 1, which has been the subject of a comprehensive review and public consultation exercise during 2022 and 2023. So the report details recommendations for changes to ensure that the Common Allocation Policy continues to comply with all relevant legislation and statutory guidance, and also reflects the local housing need across East Ayrshire. So the recommendations are noted at paragraph 3 of the report. 1, to note the outcome of the consultation exercise and the extensive engagement which took place across our communities at paragraphs 13 to 17. 2, to approve the revised Common Allocation Policy at Appendix 1, noting all the changes as outlined in the report at paragraphs 19 to 22. 3, to note the position with regards to the UK and Scottish Government resettlement schemes at paragraph 28, and can I just point out for accuracy, as paragraph 28 as opposed to 25, which is in the paper, and otherwise to note the contents of the report. So background information relating to the Common Allocation Policy, Common Housing Register, and the requirements to carry out a review of allocation policies are detailed at paragraphs 4 to 7. Information in relation to the legislative and regulatory framework for the allocation of social housing is detailed at paragraphs 8 to 12. Paragraphs 13 to 18 provide information on the consultation that was undertaken and the variety of methods that were used in this. The proposed changes are set out at paragraphs 19, and members will note that the majority of respondents agreed with all of the changes. The proposed changes ensure a continued focus on providing a clear framework for awarding priority to applicants based on their housing need. Regular monitoring and review is important to ensure that the Common Allocation Policy makes the best use of the existing housing stock to meet that housing need. Policy wording changes are set out at paragraphs 22, and can I highlight just 1 second minor error in the paper, please, at paragraphs 22, 8.4, referring to sharing points, it should read updated to clarify that sharing points may also be applicable to subtenants, separating joint tenants or joint owners. Existing applicants affected by any of the proposed changes to the Common Allocation Policy will all be contacted and provided with personalised advice and assistance in relation to their application and their circumstances. Paragraphs 26 and 27 note that there are no proposed changes to existing allocations in terms of quotas and targets, which are regularly reviewed in line with the Council's Rapid Rehousing Transition Plan, and that the Head of Housing and Communities has the discretion to adjust the allocation target quotas by plus or minus 10% as required to ensure that housing demand is met and the best use of the housing stock is achieved. Paragraph 28 makes reference to the UK and Scottish Government resettlement schemes, for which a further paper will be brought to Cabinet in November 2023. The implications are set out in paragraphs 29 to 33. The revised Common Allocation Policy was subject to a full equality impact assessment in accordance with the Council's equalities procedures to ensure equality of opportunity. So in conclusion, Chair, the review of the Common Allocation Policy ensures that the Council have in place a fair, transparent and consistent approach to the allocation of housing, making best use of the housing stock, maximising applicants' access and choice, and preventing and alleviating homelessness wherever possible. Thanks, and again, happy to take any questions because we've got Lisa and Wendy online.
Thanks, Gary. Jim?
Just a couple, Gary, maybe just for clarification of the removal of the preserved waiting time points. Maybe a wee bit of explanation around about what that actually is, and the second around about strategic needs, and updating to include area housing choices must be reasonable. So can the definition around about the word reasonable?
Yeah, so with regard to the second point, it's really just that housing options conversation with each applicant to make sure that what they fully understand the opportunities and the outcome that are likely to come from their application. So if for instance, they're queuing for one property in a highly sought after area that's got a really low turnover, then they understand the likelihood is going to be really low in them meeting their aspirations. The preserved waiting points, we stopped giving preserved waiting points over 10 years ago, but the decision at that point was to retain those points with people that had them. It doesn't reflect the housing need of those particular people, and what this policy is bringing forward is to make sure that we actually reflect that need across our communities. So we are proposing that those points are taken away. It's a very small number of people that still retain those points. So it's really important to focus on the need now. Thanks.
Anyone else? Maureen?
Just for clarity on exactly that point, Jim, it's just to ask Gary, will the impact be that people's positions with the removal of those points will change on the housing waiting list?
Yes, undoubtedly the potential is that they would change.
I take it not for the better.
No, any removal of points would change their position. We've got currently 193 people who have those retained preserved waiting points, and the vast majority of those 193 people have no other housing need points. So it's a reflection on the changes to the need of the stock and the change in demographics.
Thank you very much. I'm just acutely aware that because we have moved now to an online system, that we have had some figures back in about how effectively people have used that system. And I think because the front page of the system is the health and disability forms, the rapid increase in number of people that we have had who are now completing the health and disability forms. And I think when we spoke, it was something like, I think the figures, if I remember correctly, were an additional 147 applications inside the first 2 weeks, which actually would constitute an assessment, given our ability to do those assessments of the applications. That would actually 2 weeks of applications in from the opening of the system leads us to 12 weeks of a backlog of actually undertaking the applications. I suppose I hear what you're saying about people don't have any other housing need, but I wonder if the removal of the preserved points might leave us to a situation where people are pushed into using the online system. Again, health and disability forms come up straight away. And although we're saying at the moment these people have no other housing needs, we might discover that indeed they do. Because if they have been on that list for an overall length of time, it might be that the natural process of ageing means that they have changes in their circumstances.
Yeah, you're entirely right with the numbers that you've given, and it's a big challenge for us in terms of the numbers that are coming through, and we're making real efforts to deal with that differently. I don't know. I think maybe if Wendy wants to come in just briefly and talk about the effect of those preserved waiting points with the H&D backlog, if I can do that through you, Chair.
Certainly, Gary.
So through you, Chair, thank you, Councillor Mackay. You're absolutely right. The impact of the online application form has had we have saw an increase in the number of health and disability applications that's come in. As Gary said, we're actually in the process of putting in recruiting additional staff to actually deal with that backlog, and we will monitor that as it goes forward. We haven't saw over the years, we have saw, particularly post-COVID, an increase in health and disability applicants who are applying on mental health grounds, and we are obviously also still monitoring those particular applications. A number of the applicants with the waiting time points have been on the list for a significant period of time, some dating back as early as 1985. And each of those applicants that will be affected by the removal of points will be invited for a personal housing options interview so that we can discuss their circumstances with them and see whether there are any other housing need that we're not aware of at this particular time. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, it does, Wendy. Thank you very much. And I think in general, actually moving towards a common allocation policy that's in line with our other partners is probably a positive step forward here, so that we're clear about what the overall housing need is across East Ayrshire.
Yeah, I mean, that number 190, whatever, that'll go down, just once we, we speak to people and refine their applications accordingly. So I'm quite reassured in terms of that. So I'm quite happy with the proposals. Colleagues, any other points? Okay, can we agree the recommendations? Thank you, everybody. Okay, and we now go on to item 11, which is Vibrant Communities celebrating 10 years. And Kevin, it's...
Thank you, Chair, and I'm really privileged and pleased to be bringing this paper to Cabinet today. The paper itself is about celebrating 10 years of Vibrant Communities, and that's outlined in paragraph 1. That's celebratory work, looking at the key achievements within the service and the potential service redesign to further support the Council in realising its strategic objectives over the coming years. The recommendations are outlined in paragraph 2, and I'll come back to that at the end, Chair, if that's okay. Paragraphs 3 to 6 outlines the background to the creation of Vibrant Communities as part of our first transformation strategy, linked to that transforming our relationship with the communities we serve workstream. This itself was in response to the Christie Commission's recommendations published 12 years ago, which can be characterised as still very relevant today. As we know, Vibrant Communities was developed on the back of extensive community engagement with our residents and communities at the heart of its thinking. The service, which was groundbreaking of its time, brought together the skills and talents of over 100 front-facing community-focused colleagues in 2013, and over the past years has continued to draw attention from across the UK and wider, including the local authorities, significant researchers, investors, NHS agencies, health and social care partnerships, and audit and scrutiny bodies. Chair, paragraph 6 outlines the inclusive and values-based approach taken by vibrant communities, and I would like to create one element of this paragraph is that the service operates through 7 thematic teams at present, with the Young People Sport and Diversion team have been omitted from this bulleted list. These teams very much target the support and service across our demographic makeup, from infants, children and young people to family, adults, older people, residents and our community organisations. Paragraph 7 to 21 gives a small flavour of the past 10 years' work of Vibrant Communities, in which it has worked alongside other colleagues in our communities to deliver highly effective early intervention and prevention support, as well as supporting the development of sustainable and vibrant communities. Chair, these sections highlight the extent by which our approach within East Ayrshire through Vibrant Communities has assisted in the empowerment of communities, development of community and youth voice, community ownership and management through community asset transfer, and citizenship through supportive volunteering. The approach by Vibrant Communities is a trusted and valued one, in which other services and agencies have chosen to invest and host their resource within. It is a service which has continued to evolve over the years as it has matured, taking on Council's housing support function and delivery of key supports within education linked to the then Scottish Attainment Challenge Fund around family supports. This work has seen Vibrant grow to a workforce with over 140 talented and skilled community-focused staff. Vibrant Communities work with the Council, the Health and Social Care Partnership and community plan partners in the delivery of not just the Council's corporate plan, but the Council's community plan and associated delivery plans. The service has served the service well, enabling them to leave around up to £2.5 million of investment to support our communities. A key example of this is in the investment by our Health and Social Care Partnership, where in collaboration with Vibrant Communities, this has proven to be impactful, facilitating initiatives and programmes that prioritise early intervention and prevention. This partnership has particularly dedicated resources to advance the prevention agenda and extend comprehensive support to people within a social setting, tackling health and wellbeing and support to individuals with learning disabilities. The resulting outcomes have been remarkable, as this investment has empowered communities to proactively address potential challenges before they escalate, leading to improved wellbeing, enhanced quality of life and increased opportunities for individuals with learning disabilities. Chair, our work through Vibrant very much embraces those pillars of trustee of prevention, early intervention, integration and person-centredness. Paragraph 20 of the report highlights some key figures, and I would like to highlight the third bullet should be 25 active community councils, and paragraph 21 refers to Appendix 1, which gives members a more in-depth overview of Vibrant's work over the past 10 years, highlighting a number of the sector-leading and award-winning aspects of our work, and some of that was reflected only last week through the achievement of our MJ Award for Community Engagement. Chair, starting at paragraph 22, the report gives a nod towards a focus going forward and the redesign we believe needed to position the service well to respond to more efficiently at our communities. These considerations very much have people and place at the heart of them, realigning our team to geographic areas and empowering them to develop flexible and responsive approaches. Will help to build stronger relationships with communities and deliver better outcomes for people we serve. This will be building on the work within children's services around HEART, our education groups, and that work within health and social care locality planning. Paragraphs 26 to 30 outlines the specifics we believe is needed to develop that work on place partnerships and realignment in developing place coordinators and place workers. This work involves realigning the existing assets and investment team with the communities team, which involves all named posts in column 1 of table 8 on paragraph 29, giving a new integrated support for our communities around set localities. This will integrate the community investment and asset transfer work within this team, which we know goes hand in hand with our capacity building and our community development work. This move will see the creation of posts that will take lead thematic work across the authority while supporting coordination, development and community support within place localities. This can be seen from the structure on the second page of Appendix 2. I think it is important to highlight that the reduction in posts will be managed through existing vacancies and in line with our established HR policies. Paragraphs 31 to 35 speak about our strong partnership with the Cora Foundation, whom we have worked with very closely over the years, in particular with their capacity and community work within Cumnock. We are keen to continue this work and are seeking to support Cora's plans around place investment with a contribution of £12,000 for 23-24, which will be funded through balances of existing vacancies, giving more time to secure funding for the remaining programme term. Chair, what next for Vibrant Communities? We have outlined this work within paragraphs 36 to 45. Were around our priorities and our commitment to continue to support engagement, empowerment, and to be an agile and flexible service which is solution focused and designed around people in place, very much placing East Ayrshire's people at the heart of what we do. We will continue to deliver on those commitments and services in which Vibrant are commissioned and funded to deliver on behalf of other partners, always seeking additional investment to the authority and our communities. We will be publishing the next rendition of our VC booklets, celebrating 10 years in a documentary which has captured the impact and feedback from many of our stakeholders. We will be bringing an updated paper through outlining the review of our CLD framework in September 2023, detailing the impact of partners and Vibrant Communities' contribution to the community learning and development of our communities. Chair, in paragraph 46, it's fair to say that Vibrant and this report positively impacts our collective ambitions set out within our corporate plan and our community plan and delivery plans and our public protection agenda, as well as our children's services planning arrangements. This work is referenced, as referenced in paragraph 47, evidences our commitment to the Community Empowerment Act and our CLD regulatory commitments. Paragraph 48 outlines the people and culture implications, and I can advise that a dialogue has taken place with local trade union representatives on this report and has received positive feedback. Paragraph 50 outlines the financial implication, which indicates that the changes proposed will be undertaken within existing resources of the service, and the reduction in spend will be considered as part of our current and future service pressures going forward. Chair, there is no negative impacts on net zero, and the conclusion is outlined in paragraph 53. There are a number of appendices and background papers listed, and I would refer members to the recommendations within paragraph 2 of this report. I'm happy to take any questions, members.
Thanks very much, Kevin, and thanks very much for the report. And we know just some of the hard work some of your colleagues have put in and what they're actually delivering there. It's quite clear that it's laid out. And also, you mentioned the national recognition nationally you got for the community spaces with Councillor Maitland. Down received that last week, and that's great to see. We don't have many municipal journal awards. It's good to see that from covering the whole UK. That will certainly sit well in the cabinet over there. I suppose for me, just it's good to see this, but I think just when we look into not just the 10 years behind us, but the 10 years in front of us, and I think that's the challenges maybe for a future report where we need to go and just and that'll be interesting. Colleagues, any comments? Claire.
I'd just like to say thank you very much for the report. It's a report that we could have spent an awful lot of time on in another day in another cabinet. I think that could have deserved perhaps some more time for us to go through. But I think paragraph 20, your highlights, gives us a really good insight into everything we've done. And it was very humbling, and it was a pleasure last week to accept the award for the warm spaces. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Claire. Okay, Maureen.
Thanks very much. Just for clarity, Kevin, please, what percentage of your funding comes from health and social care? And could I just ask in relation to the financial implications, No reference is made in relation to that of the funding that you're planning to use to support the application to the Cora Foundation.
Through you, Chair. Councillor Mackay, I'll need to come back to you off table in terms of what that percentage of health and social care funding comes into Vibrant, and happy to provide that out with this meeting and circulate that. That's not a problem. It does fund a number of our key functions around about health and wellbeing, as well as that work around about befriending for children and young people, and our work around about supported accommodations as well. So it is peppered throughout the work that Vibrant takes forward, but I'll happily get you that percentage following Cabinet. In terms of the funding for the £12,000 core, that would be able to be funded through our current vacancies balances at present. In that sense, it is only an in-year contribution for this fiscal year.
It does make reference to seeking alternatives for the next 2 to 3 years, which presumably would be part of the application.
Through your Chair, in terms of that, we'll be working alongside Cora themselves in terms of looking at what extra resource that they're able to tap into in terms of their network, etc., for the following years within the programme. We are only seeking to give a commitment to year one from our own budgets.
Thank you very much. That's helpful. And again, just in terms of the design, I know that there have been some questions with some of my colleagues in terms of just an explanation for that, in terms of just a complete understanding of the changes in posts. Kevin, could you just outline that for us, please? And I think it is the asset team that's missing.
Through you, Chair, I appreciate Councillor Mackay that perhaps that element could have been presented with more clarity. The element that is in terms of the makeup of the team will be the merging of the community assets and transfer colleagues into this new communities team, working alongside colleagues in people and culture around the job evaluation of the new posts. This will then shape the delivery model of this round about a placed partnership approach in that localities model. I'm happy to provide further details in terms of how that shapes and where the posts merge, if that is of assistance.
Thanks. I'm sure Kevin will be a paper on the way forward in the future, progress that will come in front of us, where we can answer some of those questions. That'll be quite helpful. Maureen.
Thank you very much. And of course, it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge the enjoyment and pleasure that your staff have given across our communities over these 10 years and the supports that our communities have felt from the work that you've done. Thank you.
That's one. Eddie.
Thanks. I mean, I think, the paper, when it references Christie, actually references where we are as a council. Sometimes we use the words vibrant communities, but what we actually do mean is this is our leisure development service. This is some of our housing support services. This is our community education. This is our community development. This is a lot of our wellbeing services that are funded through the Health and Social Care Partnership. Vibrant communities is our model of delivery of the core council services. And, sometimes we talk about vibrant as if it's over there somewhere, when actually I think what we all need to keep ahead is vibrant is the council, in terms of delivering the core functions that we have to do out there in communities. It's a model based in Christie that we do that together rather than do it in parallel out there in communities. And I think when we look forward to the future of Vibrant, it's built on the Christie principles, and what we do is what we need to do and make sure people do be clear about this. This is the council engaging with local communities. It's not, that we're forgetting about community education or community development or anything. It's just how we deliver that.
That's Eddie. Thanks for that. That's helpful. I agree with that. Elaine.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Kevin, for bringing this report today. I think it's very reassuring to see that you've got plans to evolve the vibrant communities. Obviously, I don't have knowledge of what went before, but I am aware that during the COVID pandemic that our reach into communities really benefited that support, and I believe that was on the fundamental basis of having the vibrant communities in place for so long. So the approach you're taking with links to other partners, I think that's a good ethos that we have here, so it's good to have that clarified in the report today. And as the leader said, that we're looking back for 10 years, but it's interesting to see what's coming up and how we're going to respond to some of those challenges. Thank you.
Thanks, Elaine. Okay, with that, can we agree the paper? Okay, thanks, everyone. Next item 12 is Community Safety and Wellbeing Initiative, Additional Road and Pavement Programme 23-24. Kevin.
Thanks, Chair. The purpose of this report is to advise Cabinet of the areas on the road network which have been identified for deep patching and repairs. On the 22nd of February 23, Cabinet approved the Roads and Transportation Capital Investment Programme included within the Building a Future East Ayrshire Capital Report that sets out the Council and investment priorities over the next 10 years. On the 23rd of February, Council allocated under the Community Safety and Wellbeing Initiative to tackle the condition of roads and pavements, £400,000 from Repairs and Renewals Fund. Officers were asked to review all footways and junctions within the inspection areas and residential schemes, and the scoring matrix was applied to develop a priority programme of additional works. Ayrshire Roads Alliance Clerk of Works identified and assessed the condition of carriageways and footways within their inspection areas which would benefit from additional funding. The roads infrastructure is one of the most valuable council assets, and it is vital to the economic well-being and development of East Ayrshire. This infrastructure contributes significantly to the local economy and regeneration, and the road asset is valued at £1.7 billion, with the carriageway alone valued at £1.2 billion. The Scottish Roads Maintenance Conditions Survey commissioned by the Society of Chief Officers of Transportation in Scotland, Scots, on behalf of all local authorities in Scotland, began in 2002, and the surveys cover all local authority A-class roads in both directions every 2 years, all B and C-class roads in both directions every 4 years, and a 10% sample of unclassified roads in one direction every year. And this allows a direct year-on-year comparison for the A-class road network, and the results exclude trunk roads within East Ayrshire. It should be noted that the A-class network is ranked as the third best in Scotland, an improvement in last year's fourth place. The recommendations are contained in paragraph 2, and happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Kevin. That's really encouraging to hear that we're just getting up the league table. Absolutely. Good to see it. And again, I think this came as a response from members just to spend a wee bit more money on our pavements and our roads in some areas. And I think there's nearly most of the wards are covered, so hopefully a wee bit of pleasure in that. Hopefully Western Roads, I don't know if it's your side or my side, Maureen. I'm not getting to an argument with that, obviously, but the both sides are certainly needed, I love to say. Okay, Maureen.
I think probably Elaine and I are both looking at it and going, yeah, it's definitely your side, not ours. Yeah, we're pleased in relation to, I'm sure, South Craigs Drive, but you know, I remain disappointed. It wasn't what I was hoping for when we discussed sort of, you know, particularly pavements in relation to budget, but I accept that you are going through a process to do that. But, you know, it just means that I will have to highlight areas again next year that, you know, have not come to the top here. And, you know, I'm putting in I'm sort of doing a name check in relation to Ward Nuke. Because again, that was one of the areas that was highlighted as has had no investment in it since it was actually built. So we have seen no betterment and no replacement of pavements. So disappointed in that, but I accept the paper.
Remember the roads get done in Ward Nuke just a couple of years ago, I remember, but I don't know about the pavement. I think you maybe got a fair point there. There was one wee bit of Ward Nuke that was left out the roads, and up at the top, I couldn't for the life of me. It was about 20 yards of road was missed out, and the whole scheme was done. in terms of the road, right up the top. But I don't know. Next time you're passing, I'll take a note of it. I couldn't for the life of me understand why that was missed, but we'll get into a wee bit of detail here. But welcome this report. Anyway, any other comments before we go to recommendations? No. Do we agree the paper? Thank you. And penalty charge notice increase. You're coming up with some, that's a less popular report probably, Kevin, I don't know, but carry on.
Thank you, Chair. This report seeks approval to increase the penalty charge notice (PCN) value following national guidance issued by the Scottish Ministers on the revised levels that can be charged for parking contraventions. The Scottish Government undertook a public consultation which considered the levels of fines associated with penalty charge notices (PCNs) and published the analysis of the responses in September 2022. All the Scottish local authorities who responded to the consultation agreed that the PCN levels should be increased, which is also consistent with the COSLA position. The current PCN value administered by Scottish councils operating decriminalised parking enforcement is £60, reduced to £30 if paid within 14 days of issue. The PCN value then increases by 50% to £90 if the ticket remains unpaid and no appeal is submitted. The £60 PCN value has not been increased since DPE was introduced nationally in April 2001, and East Ayrshire Council introduced DPE in 2012. Had the PCN value been reviewed in line with inflation over the intervening years, the current value would be approximately £105. The Bank of England inflation calculator. It is not known when Scottish ministers will next review the PCN value. However, factoring in inflation, future PCN income will be subject to real-term decline until that review takes place. The new guidance allows the local authority to set a new PCN value at a lower rate of £80, discounted by 50% if paid within the 14 days, or a higher rate of £100 discounted by 50% if paid within the 14 days. These rates are increased by 50% if the PCN remains unpaid, and Table 1 breaks these options down for ease of reference. Of the other Scottish local authorities who have already increased the PCN rates, including Glasgow, Edinburgh, Dundee and Aberdeenshire, the higher rate increase has been the approved option, and all other roads authorities which are in the process of presenting recommendations to their respective administrations, such as South Lanarkshire and Argyll and Bute, and I will also be seeking approval to adopt a higher rate increase in South Ayrshire. PCN income is reinvested in parking services, public transport and road environmental improvements, and the adoption of the higher rate increase may see PCN income increase by 25% or £55,000. This estimate accounts for a potential reduction in the number of PCN issued, should the new value serve as a more effective deterrent to non-compliance, and also allows for potential increases in appeals and bad debt. It is therefore the officer's recommendation to approve the adoption of the higher rate increase, and the recommendations are contained in paragraph 2. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thanks, Kevin. Well, we can always blame COSLA, can't we? Up and down. But I think, well, just to fall into line, what else can we do, I suppose? Just be a wee bit careful where we park. But colleagues, any comments? Okay. Okay, can we... Oh, before I agree the recommendation, the last point that you missed out Fettler Drive, I just checked it in Google. You can even see it in Google Earth, it's not been done. But with that, can we agree the recommendations for this paper? Okay. Right, the final item is the proposed installation of puffing crossing at the A735 Toonhead Comores.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to advise members of a maintained objection to a proposed puffing pedestrian crossing at Townhead Comores and set out officer recommendations. ARA seeks to introduce a scheme that enhances pedestrian crossing facilities on Townhead Comores, which has the added benefit of providing a traffic calming effect. These measures are considered desirable to help reduce traffic speeds and to assist school children and other pedestrians to cross the road safely. The proposals are supported by ward members and the local community council who see these measures as essential in promoting road safety within that area of the village, and members can view a plan of the proposals at Appendix 1. In accordance with the Road Scotland Act 1984, following consultation with the police and other statutory bodies, the proposal to install the puffin crossing was advertised in the local press. Ayrshire classifies on the 5th of April 2023. Notices were also placed on site in the vicinity of the crossing. Details were also posted online at Tell Me Scotland and on the consultation page of the ARA website. In accordance with the legislation, the objection period lasted for 28 days. There is one maintained objection, which is based on the proposed location of the crossing and the objector's belief that the crossing would not be used due to perceived low footfall. The crossing is proposed to be installed opposite a lane which forms a pedestrian link between Townhead and Ladeside Gardens, and the lane appears to have been stopped up many years ago, but it has now been confirmed by the objector that they have a right of access across the lane and that they periodically access it with their vehicle to load and unload goods and other items. ARA contacted the objector in order to offer additional information when requested and address areas of concern. Officers also met the objector on site to further discuss the layout of the crossing, during which it was agreed to make minor adjustments to help maintain the right of access. The amendments were further discussed at a second site meeting, which was also attended by ward members and other residents who had a vested interest. As demonstrated in the amended plans, providing appendices 2 and 3 of a vehicular tracking assessment has been undertaken and demonstrates the fact that the access shall be maintained to the lane. The potential traffic calming effects of the crossing will be felt by the community as a whole, and in particular the adjacent residents will benefit, as they will be able to access egress their properties and the lane more easily due to the reduced traffic speeds. A further unintentional benefit of the proposed scheme will be junction safety improvements to the Vine Park Avenue junction sightlines, which are regularly obscured by parked vehicles. The introduction of the associated road markings shall prohibit parking to immediate north of the junction. Police Scotland have been consulted on the puffin crossing and have offered their full support for the scheme. Therefore, the recommendation to Cabinet in relation to the main objection is that the scheme is progressed as proposed, and the recommendations are contained in paragraph 2. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Kevin. I think this will be welcome. I know the bit. It is quite a kind of sightlines aren't very good in it, so I mean, any kind of hopefully the puffin crossing can give a wee bit more safety in the area. Members, any comments, questions with Maureen?
Just to note that I'm aware it carries support of local members, and that's good enough for me against what we also have from police and from officers here. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Maureen. Yeah, and just that we can agree that and hopefully get done pretty soon. Thanks, Kevin. Okay, do the recommendations there. Yeah, and I think that concludes business for today. And just thank you all for your attendance.
Thank you, Chair.